Good morning. What's everybody up to this morning? Thanks for being here. What's everybody up to? Thanks for being here. Did you guys watch last night's, did you watch the Artemis rocket? And did you watch Trump's speech? I streamed them both. Had a pretty good time with the Artemis rocket thing, and then, but I had like 10 times more people watching the Trump speech. However, I received like $36 in tips for the Artemis rocket. So different crowd, very different crowd. I think it's kind of sad that people are more interested in. I mean, I don't know if sad's the right word, right? Obviously, more people are going to be interested in politics than the rocket, but yeah, that speech from Trump last night. You know, I want to think that Trump has got it going on, you know, and excuse me. And I do believe that there is a sizable amount of things of information we're not privy to, and that he just can't talk about. But at the same time, you know, he was visibly shook, and he was visibly had a lot on his mind. Obviously, that letter that was released just a couple hours before he took the stage there didn't help. You know what I'm saying? Because, you know,
a little dip in the market.
Lots of people are going to latch on to that dumbass letter like it's the word of God, because, you know, anything but believing Trump or anything but
out of this world, literally.
Hey, look at that.
I'm not entirely sure.
We get to watch more of this rocket because they're supposed to be in orbit for 23 hours.
I mean, we brought to you the really exciting news. And
there's a sizable portion of the population
that crew
will choose to believe everything in that letter,
and I'm pretty sure
over our own president. And while there was some truth in that letter, there was a lot of lies in it too. But that's not the way people work these days. People are so all or nothing. It's ridiculous.
Within the next several years. But
look, let's just be honest.
Someone who joined us throughout the last couple of days to talk about this, and who was also just as excited
pluses
as me,
and
is Amanda Ruiz
minuses
with
to
our
both
team at Fox 35 in Orlando.
Both of these
and Amanda,
sides
you're joining
of the coin
me today.
here.
You were there yesterday for that launch, and I know
God,
that it just happened, but I mean, the excitement is still in the air.
People are so all or nothing with everything. Like, really?
Good morning.
Man.
That is right. I feel
this
like
is
we
a very
did.
nuanced
it was a team effort, very exciting stuff, and now
politics are very
is
nuanced.
Right before our very eyes.
You can't
that crew
just
is now sleeping.
Put all your eggs in one basket. It's not the way it works.
Before they continue on this mission into deep space, going further than any human has ever
Trump
before.
said,
take a listen to this.
We don't need the straight of hormones.
Giving their send-off.
Yeah, I'm not so sure I agree with that.
Charlie. This is Victor. We are going
I think that's an exaggeration. I don't think anybody on any side of this is going to be 100% honest. And that's what sucks about politics. You've got to take everything with a grain of salt, and you've got to, you've got to use your own brain. There's nobody that's going to give it all to you correctly. You've got to use your brain. And the thing about that is you have to have a brain in order to use it. So, if
you're watching Bloomberg TV, think of it like a drop.
If you jump and if you latch on to stories, if that's how you conduct your investigation, and if you call YouTube research, that's the kind of person that I'm speaking against, which is a lot of people. It's pathetic. But anyway, today is going to be an interesting day. It's going to be a very interesting day, I do believe. I think the markets are going to react to last night's speech. And let's see, look at that. Oil already has. at 9 p.m. last night. We shot up. Look at that. Whoo, shit. That wasn't 9 p.m. last night, was it? Yeah, sure was. Look at that. Running to $108 a gallon. Or a barrel. This is just the beginning, guys. Honestly, I do believe this is just the beginning. And at this point, man, I hate to say it, because I firmly stand with the people of Iran, you know, make Iran Persia again. I'm kind of that persuasion, but I hate to say it, but I think the only way we're going to fix this is if we nuke Iran, honestly. It's a horrible thing to entertain, because the last thing I want is for the people of Iran to suffer, and that's who, by and large, would be affected, right? But these pieces of human garbage, the Islamic Republic of Iran, I don't know that there's any other way to really stamp them out. And even then, I don't know if that'll really stamp them out. You know, because it's impossible to kill an idea. And, you know, as long as there's stragglers hanging on to that ridiculous regime, it's going to go on and on and on. I would love to know anybody else's opinion on the subject, because, you know, that's how we disseminate information. We take in all information. I'm open to discussion. I'm open to entertaining the idea that I may be wrong about this or may be wrong about that. That's how we learn. It's how we make ourselves better. So you're not going to hurt my feelings if you challenge anything I've said. As long as you're respectful, we can have a civil debate. I have no issue with that. In fact, I enjoy opposing ideas. I enjoy it if someone makes me think. You know, because it's not often somebody can. Because, you know, most people are retards. But not you, wonderful people. You wonderful people are the best in the world. You're the most intelligent people that I've come across. Right, well, looks like Bitcoin took a dump right around 9 o'clock. I wonder what 9 o'clock was last night. Oh, that was just fucking duh. I was thinking it was 6 o'clock because of the, what do you call it? Because of the Artemis rocket. But no, 9 o'clock was right when Trump started speaking. He was on time, which is rare for any president. And, yeah, he was on time and very short and sweet, wasn't he? That was a very interesting speech. I honestly expected it to go on longer. Obviously, I expected it to be late, and then I expected... You know, I was expecting a little more information, which also makes me think, like, you know, if you went ahead and planned this event, he had plenty of time. He had plenty of lead time, right? And I don't know. I tend to feel like perhaps there was more that he initially wanted to share with us, and then perhaps that letter from Iran threw a monkey wrench in that. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, it is in Trump's wheelhouse to just kind of go on and make a circular, you know, argument, you know, and by and large just say nothing when he says, you know, using a lot of words to say nothing. Trump has a habit of doing that, in particular when he goes off script. But I don't know, man. He seemed, obviously he was shook last night. Obviously he was not all there, and yeah, I feel like he was perhaps unable to talk about shit he wanted to talk about. I don't know. I'm just throwing shit at the wall, seeing what sticks. You know, throwing out ideas so we can talk about them. So please, by all means, drop a comment and let's get this discussion started. Because, yeah, I'm very interested to know what everybody's opinions are, especially on last night's speech. I felt like it was a little weak. Not weak as in strong or weak as in pointless. There was not much substance to it. There wasn't really, we got no new information. Yeah, it just seemed like pointless. So it begs the question, was there something else that was originally intended to be discussed last night? And do you think Trump had to dial it back? Do you think Trump maybe had something else he wanted to talk about originally and then ended up where he couldn't? What do you think? I mean, it's certainly possible. But, admittedly, I am kind of, grasping at straws here because I'm looking for something. There's got to be more. There's got to be more to it. All right, so this Artemis rocket, and catch you up on what you may have missed last night if you missed this. This was totally cool. It makes me so proud to see us doing stuff like this. This is great. It's taken us decades since 1972. We haven't undertaken such something so cool officially. If you believe in aliens and some of the conspiracy out there, then you know that that's not true. But if I can't prove it, I'm not going to suggest it as truth. I'll always present the unprovable as just that. So, that being said, have we gone to the moon since 1972? Is there a base on the moon? Are there bases on Mars? I love talking about that kind of stuff. In fact, I've really been wanting to just go off the deep end on conspiracy stuff just for fun. But yeah, I don't want this channel to turn around and be classified that way, I do my best to present truth and fact and let you decide whether that stuff I'm presenting is actual truth. So, produce information. That's my intent. Is to produce information. Let you decide. Every now and then, my opinions do definitely come out, and shit happens.
Our main engine throttled down to 85%, and have solid rocket booster separation expected at the 2-minute 9-second mark.
Okay, well, this is a
throttle down. Confirm separation.
This is pretty much, they're just rerunning. Still cool. I'm just getting my setup stuff over here. Integrity. 5,000 miles per hour. They ended up way faster. That's pretty impressive, though. What's the fastest you've ever driven?
Standing by for launch board system jettison.
Integrity. Yes, sir. Yep.
50 seconds into the flight of Artemis 2, Wiseman, Glover, Cook, and Hansen crossed the boundary to space with good comm checks. GPS signals acquired after last jettison now working on internal checks to verify accuracy.
Yep. Space. I'll fucking do it again. Nice. So cool. I should have been an astronaut. Do you know, like, the odds of actually going up into orbit are, like, literally... They are literally 1 in a million. Like, literally, those are the actual statistics. Literally.
9 minutes of mission elapsed time. Integrity crew of Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Cook, and Jeremy Hansen now in orbit around the Earth at the beginning of their journey to the moon.
It's literally 1 in a million.
This is Mission Control Houston, 25 minutes, 45 seconds into the flight of Artemis 2. We have confirmation that all 4 solar array wings are deployed and latched. This is the configuration needed to switch to ATO preferred, which you did hear confirmed from pilot Victor Glover. That mode has been switched. Now getting our first views from one of the solar array wing cameras over the tracking data relay satellites. We are in a night pass as we are about a little more than 1,300 statute miles above the Earth.
Wow.
Just east off the coast of Madagascar.
Nice.
You can see the parachute raise maneuver from the main engine of the ICPS firing from the solar array wing. Standing by for confirmation of cutoff.
Look. Damn it! I wish I had something I could invest in oil right now. Shit! It's about to fly, guys. Christ.
Integrity, good PRN, and 1 minute to keep your handover.
With the regain of comm, we're starting to get some views aboard the Orion spacecraft.
Integrity Houston, voice check on Tigris.
Damn it.
Loud and clear, Stan Hollis.
And we now have you the same. Good to hear your voice.
In the meantime, mission specialist Christina Cook working on the activation of some environmental control life support systems and waste management systems. Currently, as teams on the ground analyze some troubleshooting of the activation steps that she was going through, she'll gather some of the backup waste management capabilities that they have aboard Integrity, just as a precaution while the teams assess how to address what was reported down from mission specialist Christina Cook on the fault light.
I just wanted to showcase those moments when Artemis 2 officially launched there into orbit, conducting some research to hopefully get astronauts to walk on the moon within the next several years. That's just in case you missed it last night. We did showcase it for
I want to walk on the moon.
Thank you to all the viewers that did tune in with us to catch this historic moment.
Yeah, it was cool. It was cool.
Before I toss to this, I did showcase some live images that we were getting courtesy of NASA at this time. Take a look at this. Pretty interesting picture that we're getting here from some of the shuttles and the craft that is up there orbiting, carrying that 4 crewed astronaut. Now, we did hear that some commentary was actually given over this live feed. I want to dip into the audio briefly to see if we get some more commentary. Moments ago, we did hear that the astronauts were just woken up because they did have a long sleep. They had a big day yesterday. Let's see what else we can learn. Right, so I lifted up the audio. It seems that the commentary has stopped from NASA, but we'll keep an eye on this feed, and if they do just start to get some more updates on what the astronauts are doing at this time, we'll bring it to you here, so we can keep you up to date on all of this happening there on Artemis 2. So
yeah, not much is going to happen until probably around 6 or 7 o'clock this evening. They've already said they were going to be in orbit for 23 hours. So, you know, being that they launched at 6:30-ish, like 6:25, I expect at around 7:30 Eastern Standard Time that they will do their final burn, which will rocket them, pardon the pun, to the moon, around it, and back. It sure would be nice, though, if they, left the cameras running 24/7. It sure would be nice, wouldn't it? But I'm willing to bet we won't get anything of the sort. We won't be able to see what's taking all this time. What's going on? They're up there paying the alien toll booth. They have to gather their quarters and pay the 50-cent fee to go through the Van Halen belt. But yeah. 7 o'clock this evening. And even then, nothing's really going to change. They're just taking off. They're just going to haul ass. That's it. But I wish them well. I hope everything pans out. I hope their mission is a success. And I hope they don't have any issues. I was in elementary school when the Space Shuttle Challenger exploded on national television live. I mean, that was incredible. It was amazing. Like, the entire school shut down, man. They sent us all home. It was crazy. Teacher was crying. I remember all that. It was wild. I heard a very interesting theory surrounding that whole thing, the Challenger explosion. I heard some conspiracy about it, which, it made sense, but yeah, you're a little late on the conspiracy theory surrounding the Shuttle Challenger exploding. Oh, yeah, ooh. Oh, that's nice right there, sorry. Oh, ooh. Oh, ooh, yeah. Sorry, I had an ear itch. I had to dig in it. I'm sorry. That's gross. Okay, what's old Bloomberg saying?
Understand that clients sought to redeem about 11.2%. When you get those kind of redemptions, how does it work internally? How do you decide what you're going to cap? What do you do?
It's pretty easy. When we created the whole theme of these vehicles were to give global wealth investors an opportunity to be in a robust asset class with incremental yield over the last decade or so. Institutions have clamored to get into it as they took their equity risk down. And so when these products were created, they were created with the premise of you get higher returns, robust compounding yield, but we are going to protect the vehicle from the run on the bank mentality and that type of activity. And so on page 1 in black and white, it talks about a 5% redemption structure of the portfolio to protect all the investors, not just the 5%, but the 95% they're staying. So for us, it's a very easy conversation. The document said 5%. We told folks 5%. We're giving 5%. And so the idea that this is this term of a gate or redemption penalty, this is common structure and common practice. So we're not doing anything punitive. We're doing what's right as a fiduciary. So it's actually a quite easy conversation.
Is it making it more difficult, though, to raise money, to raise new money for new funds?
I think when you sit back and you see the headlines of the concerns and consternation of where we are in the credit cycle, investors will say, does this make sense for my portfolio? And yes, subscriptions of new capital have come down from the pace that they were last year. But as John mentioned, the first quarter we had as much money coming in as wanted to redeem. So we were in that fortunate spot because of the nature of how we've run the portfolio. A BDC structure is like a hedge fund or like a mutual fund. It's just a structure. Then all the choices are how you invest it, how you structure it. We've been pretty consistent, low leverage, all 100% senior secured, no PIK. So no doubt, I think investors are going to be a little bit more cautious about how they asset allocate.
I think this guy is just trying to sell something. He sounds like a fucking salesman. I hope we have a little bit more, you know, worthwhile information given to us today, or you know, worthwhile. I hope some sort of worthwhile event takes place that allows us to, you know, I don't know, make some cash. Because I'm a broke bitch. I am in a bad situation, man. I need this money to come through. I've been waiting on tax refund for 8 weeks. There's an issue, and it's stupid, and it's holding me up. It's the reason I'm homeless. I'm staying with a friend of mine who's been just way too nice, and, you know, I feel like I'm taking advantage of her. Really do. So, God damn it, I need things to break. I need something to go my way. I need an investment. But, I mean, Jet, I would drop a ton into oil right now if I could. If I could, but I can't, so I ain't. Not financial advice, but I'm telling you, man, oil's about to fucking run. And you might be like, well, it already did. You missed your opportunity. The hell you have. This is just the beginning. This started right at 9 o'clock when Trump started speaking. This isn't a reaction to what he said. This was a reaction to what he might say. And it has held. And it has slowly crept up. This is a reaction to, you know, this is people. This is the market. This is stupid people. I'm calling them stupid because at this point there was nothing really gleaned from that speech. So this is just guessing by investing. But it's held, and it's given a perfectly normal reaction to the circumstances. It's slowly creeping up. That's what markets do. I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you, we're about to see some wild shit. Bitcoin, on the other hand, Trump just signaled military escalation against Iran, and Bitcoin price dropped 6% in hours. 60,000 next? Yeah, I think it is. Maybe 50. Honestly, but that has nothing to do with Trump. Trump is just everything going on with Trump and the war and all that. That's just, you know. That's just the kick that it needs to fall off the ledge, because this has been coming. Honestly, I've been suspecting that we'll go into the 50s for a little while now. But the good news is when that happens, if and when that happens, that'll be the bottom. It's not going to go any lower than maybe the high 40s, maybe. Anything can happen, right? But it's highly unlikely that we're going to see Bitcoin below 50 grand ever again. So, you know, to the Bitcoin going to zero crowd, get fucked. That'll never happen. Short of a global EMP, that will never happen. And even if that happens, guess what? What do as human beings? We rebuild. Don't get me started on that crowd. Trump's fresh Iran threats give investors a risk-off reality check. Hey, let's see what this article says. I love how people just get so all or nothing about everything. Oil prices surge after Trump's comments on the Iran conflict. Analysts warn of stagflation risks as prolonged war disrupts energy supply. Investors shift to safe haven assets. Dollar strengthens amid market volatility. U.S. President Donald Trump's threat to bomb Iran back to the Stone Age. Actually, he threatened to bomb them back to the Stone Ages. That's exactly what he said. Anyway, the sharply raised stakes in a war now in its 5th week and crushed investors' hopes for a swift end to a conflict that is squeezing oil supplies and fanning inflation. Global markets recoiled on Thursday with stocks and bond prices sliding. oil surging and the dollar firming after Trump gave little clarity on when the conflict might end. Trump said the U.S. military has nearly accomplished its goals in Iran, but that it would continue to hit targets over the next 2 to 3 weeks, and did not say how the Strait of Hormuz, a key shipping route blocked by Iran, might be reopened. I don't think there was an awful lot in the speech per se, apart from the fact that they're going to keep bombing for the next 2 to 3 weeks. You know there's no substance in an article when they repeat something like that. That pushes out the resolution time frame longer. Yes. Yes. See, the point that Trump made in his speech last night that I see people already talking shit about. People love to take little snippets of shit and act like it's meaningful in the grand scheme of things. He said, we don't need the Strait of Hormuz. He said, we have all the oil we could ever need, right, Sean? I mean, okay, but dot, dot, dot. You know what I mean? There are so many things you could say in response to that. Yeah, but I just don't think that, you know, that we're ever going to get a full, clear picture. I just don't. Oh. I can't wait to see what we're going to talk about when it comes to aliens. I can't wait. Because, you know, Trump has been talking about aliens, right? Or releasing UFO files, right? I can't wait to see what comes of that. Oh, it's going to be so fun. This country's hilarious. The guys try not to take too much of it too very serious, you know? Yeah, there's serious issues. And my heart goes out to the people of Iran. I firmly believe that we should make Iran Persia again. But you know, you got to take the pluses where you can get them. This world is fucked. You've got to look for the humor in things, or you'll just die a miserable human being. You've got to try and find humor in things. You've got to. Even if it's a topic that doesn't generally warrant much laughter, you've got to try. Everyone needs a little more levity. Everyone needs to try harder to smile and laugh. Because it's true. There's far more things in this world to be upset about. Yeah. All the more reason. We should really try and get along with each other. Even that jackass neighbor of yours. We should always try to get along with each other. Because, you know, we got to share a planet. We got to share, you know, a sidewalk. I think it's a shame that anybody just writes someone off completely, like my own aunt has done. You know, these people. When I say these people, this applies to both sides of the coin. You know, you say one thing that's in support of Donald J. Trump, and that obviously means that you agree with a whole list of shit that they don't like. The same can be said about people on the right. These people on all sides make the same asinine type deductions. You know? I see it on both sides, man. And it's repugnant from both sides. I don't give a shit what side you're on. You know? Like let's say I support abortion. I just love killing babies. That doesn't mean everything else that the left is retarded for. It doesn't mean that I would subscribe to all that. You know what I mean? Like, I do have a few left-leaning beliefs of my own. But to the right audience, that just means that, you know, everything else applies too. No, it doesn't. I think you're on crack if you aren't just a little bit purple. Right! What are we doing today, guys? Where's your money at? What are you making? I'm about to go have a smoke. Yeah, I'm going to do it now while the audience is low. I'm going to leave this on. I shall return, baby. Oh, Christ. Man, fucking... No. I'm not leaving that music on so they can charge me a nickel. I'll be back.
Growing pains. And as I go back to my first principles, if investors over 15 years were not actually making money, and I see the demographics of the globe right now where investors need robust compounding yield, I'd be concerned, but I see the great benefit of this product.
I've sensed frustration. I've sensed frustration from the asset managers. You have too. I can feel it now. I've got to be honest with you. I can sense the frustration that you've got, I think, with some of the coverage over the past few months. What is it about the coverage that's been quite upsetting? The fixation on just BDCs and not the broader asset class? What is it about that's upset you and the team, maybe?
Well, I got to push back on being upset.
I can tell you over the last few minutes it's felt that way.
Okay.
Maybe not aimed directly at us, but certainly the coverage of your world.
Well, I think that a lot, because of the proliferation of the analysis in every corner of the environment we work in right now, I think that's why I had my message about taking a step back. You know, I do think when you look at the growth of the U.S. economy since '09, the result has been we have the most robust banking system in the world. We have the leading banks that are well-run organizations that have done an amazing job, and the return on equity and their impact in the U.S. economy is profound. You also have a backdrop of economic growth that is unmatched around the globe, and I don't think it's any surprise that the advent of pushing out the risk in the banking system, the benefit of securitization, the benefit of CLOs, the benefit of all the things that institutions have helped out with, that has resulted in a much broader, deeper base financing environment. We financed a lot of growth. We financed amazing tech growth. Our VC marketplace is the most robust in the world. And so I think that, you know, many mutual funds today, I'll give you a little analysis. Many mutual funds today were very forward thinking and were able to buy SpaceX several years ago. And so SpaceX is part of their portfolio, a small portion. There's probably not a clearly defined marking process on how they all mark their SpaceX equity because of employee sales, whether it's monthly, quarterly, whatever it is. But just because the marking process may be inconsistent, that shouldn't stop them from buying a great American company that they're going to do very, very well on. And so that's why I think we're sort of missing the plot about, I've talked on this show in the past about Berkshire Hathaway, about half of their portfolio being in private companies. And so I do think the whole idea of the public-private convergence, the broader portfolio approach, where the market's going in terms of these massive CapEx, that's where I think we've sort of lost the plot a little bit. And again, I'm not in the newspaper business, but I do think that I know what sells headlines, and I think the methodical, robust growth of the U.S. economy, the role of the public-private convergence, the strength and breadth of our financing, that's really the bigger story here.
And clearly there are people who want to belittle or demean this industry because they feel like either they've been left behind or they want to suppress prices so they can get in and buy. And I just wonder, from your perspective, are you seeing this as an opportunity to get more aggressive, considering that there have been some discounted assets, there are some weaker hands, and a lot of people are worried, including myself?
Well, unfortunately, I would say two things. In my 41 years in the industry, in the 20 years at Apollo, whenever there's been any kind of dislocation, we've been fortunate enough between the breadth and the discipline and the capital we have to end up in a better spot. That's number one. The second is, I would say, is the headlines have been much more profound and loud than the activity. There really isn't a lot of assets that are for sale that have widened out dramatically. The high-grade index is where it's been. The high-yield index has really been pretty tight. There's been a variety of financings done. Look what JP Morgan did on EA Sports. They did a massive IG crossover financing. The high-yield and loan markets have been pretty strong. So there's been a great excitement about putting this massive amount of capital to work. That's the business we're in. We really have not seen the vast majority of assets coming to marketplace that people have talked about. So, you know, we have a lot of liquidity. We've got 125 billion of capital and liquidity ready to put in the market in our platform, but I'm sure we'll be active, and I'll talk about it on the several times I'm back here the rest of the year.
Final question.
Yes, sir.
Texas or Florida?
You know, we want to, we love New York. New York has been our home for a long time, and we're going to maintain a massive presence in New York.
Do you feel loved by New York?
You know, New York is a very dynamic place that will always attract a lot of best and the brightest of young folks. But we want to make sure, as we think about our company between New York, Des Moines, El Segundo, we want to make sure we have a spot to create growth and innovation, and we'll see what the process leads us to.
Let's go for a walk together.
Sounds
we can
great.
do that in a moment. Jim Zauter, it's good to see you, sir.
I believe it.
Thank you. Jim Zauter of Apollo Global Management. Jim, this was fun. We appreciate your time.
Always appreciate
Thank
being
you
here.
very much. A stern defense of his asset class. No doubt expected by many.
Yeah, well, and saying that really you haven't seen the actual pain in terms of fire sales or any kind of assets on the market. The broader takeaway to me is the economy is going to be in a robust place in October, September, come when this is in the rearview mirror. And it speaks to some of the upside surprise that we've seen in economic growth. Also speaks to the reason why some people are worried about inflation.
Do you remember a long time ago, if you got the tap on the shoulder and you were asked to move outside of the New York office to somewhere else, it felt like a punishment. And now it feels like a reward. Can you imagine the line of some of these financial institutions to get on board, jump ship, and go somewhere else?
Well, and that is part of the reason why they're moving to other places and why you're seeing those locations surge.
Walks in Miami.
Right? You know?
Much better.
At least
run out of time, but I do wonder how many people knocked the door and said, you know what, Jim, I fancy some of that.
I would like...
I'll see you down in Florida.
I would like to hear the New York response.
Yes.
You know, what does New York City have to say to that?
Coming up on the programme, Mike Powell of BlackRock, lowering his outlook for US equities, plus Danny has your morning movers. Higher fuel prices weighing on airline stocks this morning. Stocks down across the board. New session lows on the S&P. We're negative by 1.5% on the S&P 500. From New York City, you're watching Bloomberg TV.
Thousands of American Marines are heading to the Middle East.
Greece will not participate.
There's a very good chance we're going to end up in a deal.
He's looking at putting boots on the ground.
This is going to be a short-term excursion.
Trust Bloomberg for on-the-ground coverage.
Things are not de-intensifying.
A lot of fear here in Europe. Ukraine is being left out in the cold.
Up-to-the-minute reporting.
The Fujera report has been hit.
Missiles have struck the U.S. Embassy.
And the analysis you need.
The United States military has shown its might. Now it's time to please calm down.
Nobody covers geopolitics like Bloomberg.
We're at the epicenter of a global realignment on a scale not seen for decades. At the intersection between markets, economics and geopolitics, a forum for sophisticated conversation. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
Join me each week on Wall Street Week for stories of capitalism from business, markets, economics, tech, and climate. More than what you need to know, it's what you need to think about.
The trading day is about to start.
And you're already looking for that edge.
The opening trade brings you everything you need to know as markets open across Europe.
Let's talk about the significant risk transfers to find space in their balance sheet.
Hedging some of that risk.
You could look at it the other way. Obviously, this stuff is risk-weighted.
I would much rather be long than be short.
We're in a kind of sweet spot.
Very, very strong alignment.
3 revolutions in one.
I'm Guy Johnson.
I'm Anna Edwards.
And I'm Tom McKenzie.
This is your opening trade.
Every trading day, only on Bloomberg.
Let's sit on this price action just for a beat. Equities down across the board on the S&P 500. We're down by 1.5% on the S&P. Jim Zalter's taken a walk. That's why he's so chill.
I mean, right? He gets a chance to take a walk. In fairness, he was in Australia. He's ever coming back?
Don't listen, Jim. The Nasdaq's down 2%. In the bond market, 2s, 10s, 30s look like this. He's a good sport. Yields are up by 5 basis points on 10s, 437. 2s up by 5, 385. Encouraged by this move here in crude. WTI and Brent advancing this morning. Brent crude just short of 110 now, 109.55 and up by more than 8%. The president's address, for many of you, falling short. Didn't have new information. And I keep going back to the 2 key issues for this market right now. End the hostilities, get the energy moving. And there's nothing that we've heard in the last 24 hours that suggests that one or the other is going to happen anytime soon.
People were expecting this to be some sort of explanation of how the U.S. was going to extricate itself from Iran based on some of the recent posts that we've seen on Truth Social. Instead, it was preparing the American people for a greater escalation, which is a reason why you're seeing a response this morning. Again, how many days do we have to come in and say, well, everything's changed now that there's a new post or there's a new comment? And that is sort of a question. At what point do we reach the place where there's sort of diminishing returns for some of these macro headlines that keep whipsawing everything?
When it comes to the Strait of Hormuz, the president gave no indication that the U.S. government is going to be the ones to reopen it via militarily. And then we hear from Emmanuel Macron of France saying it would be, quote, unrealistic to try to open it through military means. And they say we need to cooperate with the Iranians, who right now the United States is having strikes on.
The next phase for all of this is the data, the economic data and the earnings, the guidance coming from corporate America and elsewhere. We've got more economic data for you now. Mike McKee has more. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, John. Well, it is sort of guidance. The Challenger job cuts numbers are just out. Now, these don't all happen, but they do give us an indication of what the corporate offices are thinking. And we see 60,620 job cuts announced in the month of March. Now, that is down 78% from the same month a year ago. However, if you look industry by industry, technology getting whacked. 18,720 jobs announced to be cut in March. A total for 52,050 for the year so far. The next biggest is pharmaceutical, and that's only 6,348 for the year so far. Manufacturing jobs continue to go away. But if you want a job that doesn't seem to be threatened at the moment, become a lawyer. The legal industry, no job cuts in March, none announced year to date, which is kind of interesting because everybody says AI is going to get rid of a lot of people in the legal industry. It seems to be doing much more to those who are creating AI than to those who are going to be using it.
Mike, it's always the way. When things start to get bad, they make money. Mike McKee, thank you, sir. The latest on the jobs data. More tomorrow morning at 8:30 Eastern Time with the payrolls report. ADP was decent. Retail sales were decent. ISM, the headline was decent. You noted prices paid. That might be of more of a concern in the months to come if that holds.
Yeah, the idea that you see prices paid increasing to the highest pace since 2022. I just find it interesting that this highlights how companies are shifting budgets toward AI investments at the expense of jobs. That's according to the head of the Challenger jobs cuts announcements. And again, this is the existential risk behind all of this. We're leveraged on a bet tied to artificial intelligence that will prop us up through any kind of potential shock. At what point do we see that percolating into other issues that affect the economy? And this is the reason why people get negative. They start to like put all these things together and it becomes
questioning your own negativity.
Well, I don't want to question my own negativity. I never want to question that. But I do think that Jim Zelter is onto something when you actually look at the upside surprises in a lot of the economic data that we've gotten.
Data's good. Capital markets have been wide open. From Jim's seat, I see the same thing. That makes a lot of sense. If you're in a political seat right now, I'd be far more concerned. Gasoline prices, $4 a gallon. The trends you're talking about in the labour market. Try getting elected on those kind of trends. That doesn't look good for me going into the midterms.
I'm more worried about the sovereign debt market, frankly, because given the fact that everyone's going to be trying to prop up a lot of the incomes of individuals, both in the United States and elsewhere, how much is that the real issue? More fiscal spending and what that does to the yield curve.
And when it comes to trying to get elected, if you look at the latest Reuters Ipsos poll this week, 2/3 of Americans want a quick end to the Iran war. We did not get that last night for the president.
OK, you ready? You feel more comfortable now? Good. Feel comfortable in your negativity.
For a walk. No, I mean,
that's
that's a contradiction.
He's in a different seat to us.
No.
He gets to go for a walk.
I mean, being comfortable in your own negativity.
Oh, right,
like
sure.
A permanent uncomfort.
All right.
Let's move on.
On a radar this morning, the president indicating the war in Iran is nearing completion.
We are going to finish the job, and we're going to finish it very fast. We're getting very close. I want to thank our allies in the Middle East, Israel, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE, Kuwait, and Bahrain. They've been great, and we will not let them get hurt or fail in any way, shape, or form.
The president later pledging more aggressive action in the coming weeks, including potential strikes on Iran's electrical plants.
If there is no deal, we are going to hit each and every one of their electric generating plants very hard and probably simultaneously. We have not hit their oil, even though that's the easiest target of all, but we could hit it and it would be gone, and there's not a thing they could do about it.
Some of those comments from the president sending equity futures lower and crude prices much higher. And finally, a concerning story developing. The Goldman Sachs headquarters in Paris receiving bomb threats overnight. This just days after a failed bombing attempt near the Bank of America office in the French capital. Citi telling employees in Paris and Frankfurt to work remotely as a precaution.
Hugely concerning. The reports say that this is tied to a threat coming from Iranian-backed groups or groups that are pro-Iran. Again, this is not just an isolated story to the Middle East, to a specific region. This is the new type of warfare, and it is warfare with a nation that is engaged in a lot of cells around the world to engage in terrorist acts. So definitely something that's hugely concerning, and we'll keep monitoring it.
And Europe is obviously bracing for this. The Paris police saying they're tightening security around U.S. banks. You have bank CEOs saying just don't go to work. How long is this going to last? It's a serious concern.
We'll keep tracking those headlines as they come in. Yahara is going to stay on top of that story for you. Let's stay on our top story this morning for financial markets worldwide. The president's address on the war in Iran, weighing on risk appetite and whipsawing financial markets. Mike Pyle of BlackRock writing, we think the shock in energy is not fully reflected. We're recommending dialing back risk in global equities. We've trimmed our overweights to the US and Japan to neutral. Mike joins us now for more. Mike, good morning.
Great to be here.
Let's talk about why you believe it's not well priced. What is the risk that you don't think is sufficiently priced at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think as you were talking about in the lead-in, that duration of disruption to global energy supplies is the core question, and it looks as if it's going to continue to cascade for some number of weeks, if not months, from here. That is a core risk to the global economy, and one that I think has caused our portfolio managers to be dialing back risk, just more to that neutral position.
You're tracking how the dominoes fall. Just describe how that will cascade in the weeks to come. Now, the president's essentially told us, and we can go with this as a baseline assumption, this will continue at least 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say maybe a couple of things. One, you know, when it comes to the geopolitics, when it comes to when energy is going to be restarted, I've got my eyes on 2 things now coming out of the president's remarks. One, that mid-May date when the Xi-Trump summit has been scheduled, May 14th, May 15th. I don't think they're going to want to reschedule that again. That's obviously very important to the president, to U.S.-China relations. I think as I look out there, that looks to be something of a backstop for the length of hostilities here. Secondly, you know, the UK Foreign Secretary's convening 35 countries in London today. I think a broader set of countries around political diplomatic, military steps are going to be a part of a solution to the Strait of Hormuz. And I think that those discussions are happening is important. So those are two things in light of the president's remarks I've got my eyes on. I think to your question, this has already now been going on 4 to 5 weeks. It's going to take weeks, if not months, to restart, and we've got cascading issues as a result. I think, what am I looking at? I'm looking at not just the headline prices of crude. I'm looking at a lot of those spreads to the refined products, to things like diesel, to things like jet fuel, to things like naphtha, where we're really seeing signs of physical supply disruption, demand destruction, especially in Asia, and I think beginning to extend to Europe. And I think those are the places where we're really going to see some of that that supply disruption manifesting itself in economic slowdown.
You're talking about going to neutral for both Europe and the United States, even though a lot of people have come on the show and said Europe will be much harder hit, as you were just talking about, as well as Southeast Asia. What's the transmission mechanism for the United States that, given all of the growth that Jim Zelter's talking about, you think could potentially stymie expectations even further from here?
Yeah, so I divide that into kind of two parts. One, I think on the real economic side, certainly the U.S. has and is going to have its exposures. This is a global supply shock, but the U.S. is coming into this from a relatively strong economic position, as Jim was talking to, and is relatively more resilient to energy shocks globally. I was talking to Anne-Marie before we came on air. If you look at the natural gas price in the United States, an important input to electricity, an important input to industrial production in the United States, that basically hasn't moved since the start of the Iran war. Very different than what we saw in 2022. On the flip side, I think there are a set of financial linkages from the United States to the rest of the world, that could be stressed. There are going to be a lot of countries, whether in the Gulf and Europe and Asia, that are having to take resources and invest them at home around their own resilience, around their own defense. Those are financial flows that are an important uplift historically for U.S. equities, for U.S. assets, and I think some of those financial linkages could be a headwind as we look ahead.
Is this a reason why potentially yields could go even higher in the U.S.? We're talking about equities and Middle East investments in the United States equity market, but what about the fixed income market, given how much they've been also investing there?
Yeah, so I think, we look at the long end of government bond curves. That isn't just in the United States. I think it's across developed markets in general, and see, risks to the upside. Obviously, all of these are markets that came into this conflict with question marks over fiscal, the need to invest. Those question marks, those needs to invest, even greater now. And so I think particularly at that long end, that 10 to 30 year part of those curves, we see risk in the United States, but risk across the developed markets more broadly.
Well, we see structural changes. You brought up something like naphtha. The United States right now is exporting the most on record, 15 million barrels of naphtha last month. That's pretty incredible for the U.S. Does that stay?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that this is a moment that is going to be a pivot point, just as the 2022 invasion was, just as COVID was for supply chains globally. And I think one thing that gets talked about a lot, but I think can't be underscored enough, is the benefits of building resilience through stockpiling. I think that one of the ways in which we're going to see increased spending, increased investment from a range of countries around the world is building these stockpiles around critical inputs, like on energy, like on raw materials. And naphtha is just one example where I would expect to see ongoing demand, because companies are going to want to build those resilient stockpiles in the face of the likelihood of ongoing shock.
It's something, a theme we've heard repeatedly over the last month, that's going to keep prices elevated even after these hostilities end and conclude.
And it's not just in oil prices, it's not just in gas prices, but aluminum, in nickel, in copper, and that's what you see around some of the pricing and the volatility there. How you get a handle on that and what that means for inflation longer term, again, that's the reason why people are looking at the fiscal budget as well as potentially the price inputs for consumers.
Mike, thoughtful. It always is. It's good to see you. A year since Liberation Day. Where's 12 months gone? It's crazy, isn't it?
Flies by.
1 year on from Liberation Day. Mike Powell there of BlackRock. 12 months later, we're sitting here trying to work out what the impact of that day is going to be. Still trying to figure things out.
Well, when it comes to tariffs, yeah, because the Supreme Court struck down IEEPA, the administration is working out exactly what the tariff rates are going to be. I just spoke to Jameson Greer about this. They're still working out what the tariff rate is going to be on China. They're trying to get back to that 20%. Can they? We'll see.
That meeting between Xi and the president circled on, I think, most people's calendars going into the month of May. Let's give an update on stories worldwide this morning with your Bloomberg Brief. Yahira has more. Hey, Yahira.
Hi, John. Great Britain will host talks aimed at forming a coalition of countries to explore ways to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. The virtual meeting will include at least 30 countries, including France, Germany, Italy, Canada, and the UAE. The U.S. is not expected to attend. The headquarters of Goldman Sachs in Paris was placed under police surveillance last night following bomb threats believed to be from an Iranian group. The threats come just days after a bombing attempt was foiled near the office of Bank of America in the French capital. Citi telling its Paris and Frankfurt employees to work remotely as a precaution. And the Wall Street Journal reporting that Maine is poised to freeze large data center construction until November 2027. The bill calls for the pause so the states can assess the impact of data center development on the environment and electricity grid. That's your Bloomberg Brief. John.
Yahara, thank you. Thanks for the update. Update on the market session lows. We're down here by 1.6% on the S&P 500. Up next on the program, a crude awakening.
Many Americans have been concerned to see the recent rise in gasoline prices here at home. Our economy is strong and improving by the day, and it will soon be roaring back like never before. It will top the levels that it was a month ago.
Up next, we'll catch up with Claudio Irigoyen of Bank of America Securities, live from New York City. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
Have you ever thought about, or would you make a movie for a streaming service? Would you make a Netflix movie?
Man, that's a great question. I mean,
I'm waiting for one where I ask and you go, that was a shitty question.
Yeah. I mean, you know, you good at your job, bro. Like, this is actually the first time anybody's ever asked me that. You know, I'm not here to say what I would and wouldn't do in the future. You know, but the theatrical experience is one that means a great deal to me. It means a great deal to us. Mm-hmm. I feel a certain responsibility. Like if Fruitville had happened a calendar year later, it probably would have come out on streaming. You know, I've been fortunate enough that everything that I've written and directed has been a theatrical release. So I feel a duty to try to protect that. You know, but that's where I'm at today.
Know how the market day started.
Find out how it finishes.
Public markets to private markets.
From the micro to the macro.
Covering retail, entertainment, the business of sports.
The supply chains, trade policy, how it all is impacting the U.S. equity market as we drive to the closing bell at 4 p.m.
A holistic approach to covering financial markets.
If it matters to your life, we're covering it. I'm Katie Greifeld.
And I'm Romaine Bostic, and this is The Close.
Live every weekday.
Only on Bloomberg. Context changes everything.
Good morning. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
Welcome back to the opening trade.
Watch Bloomberg Tech.
This is the Asia trade.
This is Wall Street Week.
Welcome to Balance of Power.
You're watching Bloomberg Deals. Welcome to Bloomberg This Weekend.
This is Bloomberg Television.
Bringing you up-to-the-minute political news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Tyler Kendall in Washington, and this is Bloomberg.
Let's get you up to speed on the price action this morning. Equities declining. Decent two-day bounce, the biggest two-day run we've seen on the S&P since May of last year. We take almost all of it back this morning. We're down by 1.6% on the S&P. On the Nasdaq, we're down by 2 percentage points. On the Russell, a similar move. In the bond market, yields pushing higher. It's that toxic brew, as Bramo would call it. Stocks are lower, bonds are lower, yields are higher by 5 basis points, 10's up to 437. And the epicenter of all the price action is this right here. The story hasn't really moved on. Brent crude at 109, up by 8%. And the fact the story hasn't moved on is part of the problem.
Yeah, but you can't really discount the idea of higher oil prices. When I look at the price action every single day, I wonder, do traders come in and they're like, oh no, we got to sell, or oh no, I got to buy, or is this just algorithmic trading and programmed trading that's trying to pick up all these headlines, interpret them, and inject, oil prices up, bad, risk on, or risk off, oil prices down, good, risk on? At what point are we just trying to put a narrative to what ultimately is just computers?
Well, the administration is trying to put a little bit of a cap, at least through verbal intervention, on the paper market. The issue is everyone's waking up to the physical market, and the fact that the Strait of Hormuz is still closed 5 weeks in is a huge problem. And right now, the president didn't offer any options besides it naturally opening up, or other countries that use it opening up, which Emmanuel Macron to that today says that's unrealistic and it has to be done through consultation with Tehran.
No sign that external partners have the ability to open it up right now. And if they did, no real sign from the president right now that they've got the willingness to do that, at least for the moment. And things can change because guidance has gone back and forth over the last few weeks. For markets, your base case now is this endures, it's prolonged, it goes another 2 to 3 weeks. And the longer the Strait of Hormuz is compromised, the more the problems accumulate. And I think we're already past the point of this being a short-term shock. And that's what I get from the commodity pros at the moment, reading the research on the sales side, is this is already a medium-term issue because of the damage done to production across the region.
Which is the reason we're all looking at the economic data. How much momentum do we have going in to withstand the potential shock that clearly is going to be a little bit more significant than a lot of people thought?
On a surveillance this morning, a crude awakening.
Many Americans have been concerned to see the recent rise in gasoline prices here at home. In 1 year, we've taken a dead and crippled country and made it the hottest country anywhere in the world with no inflation. Our economy is strong and improving by the day, and it will soon be roaring back like never before. It will top the levels that it was a month ago.
So here's the latest this morning. Oil prices surging as President Donald Trump vows to increase attacks on Iran. Claudia Irigoyen of Bank of America Securities writing, we now assume the war ends before the end of April, with oil prices around $100 a barrel for the rest of the year. Claudia
Easily.
joins us now for more. Claudia, good morning. That's quite a headline.
Sorry I was gone for so long. My ass has been exploding. But I am still here for you. Because I love you.
Gotten so bad. Clearly, the administration doesn't want to see that. So I think they are, on the one hand, using economic sanctions as a kind of lever in negotiations with the Cuban government. But we still have to find out if there's enough common ground to get a deal. So I'd be watching that. What exactly, to the extent we know, are the agenda items?
I find it funny that Russia and China are both stepping up for Cuba. These people are just taking such advantage of the situation, trying to make themselves look good. Obviously they want to look good on the world stage because they're attempting to usurp the United States in many of their playing fields. Right? I think China sent a massive load of rice, enough rice for the entire country for a month. That's a lot of rice. Something ridiculous. It's just something outrageous. A huge amount of rice.
Trump International Hotel opened. Donald bought Scotland's Turnberry Resort.
What?
And in June, Trump was at Turnberry again when the British took a page from his populist book and voted to leave the European Union.
This was one of the big votes in the history of Europe and Scotland and everywhere. So I wish everybody a lot of luck.
Over the years, his business have kept Trump away from home a lot. But Melania says she's not lonely. She likes to spend time on her own.
We have a great relationship. We are own people.
I'm my own person, he's his own person, and I think that's very important. I don't want to change him, he doesn't want to change me.
Coming up next, Melania's biggest moment from the campaign.
I don't know about you, but I don't care. I don't care about Melania's biggest moments from the campaign. Sorry, Melania, I just don't care. I am, you know, I saw some news about the UK and how the UK is now doing something in regard to this war. So bear with me while I find this. It was a very interesting looking story. Nope. 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 That's more of that. I'm going to put Bloomberg back on while I dig for this story.
Resilient.
How important is tomorrow's jobs report to you? At what point does the sort of typical economic data matter again versus, say, just the company reports that come out during earnings?
When does it matter again?
I mean, this report is obviously dated because it's information pre-war. It gives you a flavor of where the economy was before the war. This type of shocks, stagflationary shocks, shows up first in inflation and then in economic activity. So you're going to see it in employment maybe in the next 2 to 3 reports. We need to wait. But the inflation numbers, you're going to see it pretty quickly.
Do you think that will shape the sequencing that you just described? Do you think that's going to shape communication from the central bank as well? Do they start out by trying to anchor inflation expectations, knowing that at some point down the line, they've got to respond to growth?
Yeah, absolutely. And over time, you're going to have either good news about the war or bad news about the war.
Do you think?
So it's a moving target to some extent. But for instance, at this point, we have the Fed not doing anything for a while, but we have the ECB hiking in June and July.
Wow.
What if you could see the biggest options trades the moment they hit the market?
Dynamic and very different type of management of inflation expectations.
Got 30 seconds left. Do you consider that a policy mistake if they hike twice?
Not necessarily. I think there is so much uncertainty that it's too early to tell that it's a policy mistake. We're talking about June and July. We are beginning of April. This is equivalent in normal times of 3 years, basically.
Yep.
A lot of things will happen between now and then.
Claudio, it's good to see you. Thanks for being here. Appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
Claudio Irigoyen there of Bank of America Securities looking for, on average, $100 a barrel for the remainder of the year.
Yeah, and the idea that increases
At least
headline CPI around the world by 90 basis points, by almost a full percentage point as a response, gives you a sense of how this is increasingly very much an inflationary story.
Coming up on the program in the next hour, we'll catch up with Sarah Hunt of Alpine Saxon Woods, Ruqayya Ibrahim of BCA Research, Alejandro Grindal of Ned Davis Research, and Osun Kwon of Wells Fargo. The third hour of Bloomberg Surveillance is just around the corner.
Sponsors Sky News Web. World's most powerful investor.
Okay. I pulled up Sky News. I'm pretty sure that's Australia, if I remember correctly. Just wanted to have them up because they look like they were talking about something interesting.
Will be wet later.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors
Every time.
Sky News weather.
Every time.
You're watching Sky News. Coming up after the break, more continued coverage of Robert Bush, the funeral director who pleaded guilty to multiple counts of preventing a lawful and decent burial.
Right. There's a whole lot of nothing in the news. Yeah, I think everybody knows how the news is going to be today. Everyone knows how the market's going to be today. It's going to be interesting. I'm going to go back over to Artemis and see what's going on. Looks like we continue to get some interesting information. I love it. Love it. Okay, well, there's no sound. If you missed the rocket launch last night, I covered it live. I thought it was pretty cool. Oh, yeah. Oh, my ass is talking to me. Not a good thing. It might cause me to have to step out.
All right, wanted to bring you some of that as it was happening there, a SpaceX launch, especially in the wake of Artemis 2 that we saw just yesterday. You watched it right here on Live Now from Fox. If you are just joining us here, it is 8 o'clock on the dot over on the East Coast and 5 o'clock on the West Coast. A big thank you to my colleague, Karel Lahara, who has been here with you for the past several hours to break down all of your top stories and live events from across the country and the world. My name is Josh Breslow, and I'm here to do the same. Right there on the right-hand side of your screen, you are taking a live look over the Capitol building there in D.C., where in just about 30 minutes, the House of Representatives expected to meet to talk all about Department of Homeland Security funding. We know we did get an update from John Thune as well as House Speaker Mike Johnson just yesterday that they hope they can get a deal in place very soon. They do have what appears to be the makings of a deal, so we could potentially see a test vote there today in the House. We'll bring you all of that as it gets underway here in just about 30 minutes. Right now, I do want to get to the latest here on Operation Epic Fury. Take a live look here over the White House at this hour as a senior Iranian commander is responding to President Trump's address to the nation about the operation.
Oh, this ought to be
Here's
good.
what President Trump explained as he said Iran would be brought back to, quote, the Stone Ages. Take a listen.
I sure hope so.
I made clear from the beginning of Operation Epic Fury that we will continue until our objectives are fully achieved. Thanks to the progress we've made, I can say tonight that we are on track to complete all of America's military objectives shortly, very shortly.
Very shortly.
We're going to hit them extremely hard over the next 2 to 3 weeks. We're going to bring them back to the Stone Ages where they belong. In the meantime, discussions are ongoing. Regime change was not our goal. We never said regime change, but regime change has occurred because of all of their original leaders' death. They're all dead. The new group is less radical and much more reasonable.
I feel like that's what you would say.
Right, that was President Trump just last night in an address that we brought to you here on Live Now from Fox in real time. Now,
I feel like that's what you would say, right?
Reporting here that an account attributed to Majid Masavi with the Islamic Revolutionary Guard had this to say, quote, "It is you who will take your soldiers under gravestones, not Iran, that you can return to the Stone Age," adding the U.S. was threatening, quote, "a civilization thousands of years old." This is, of course, just the latest back and forth between the U.S. and Iran, with President Trump saying that Iran's leadership has asked for a ceasefire, while those same Iranian leaders claim they have not. During last night's primetime speech, President Trump touted the successes of Operation Epic Fury, reiterating that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon and that their military has been, quote unquote, obliterated. I want to pop this up on your screen right here. This is some new video that is coming in from CENTCOM, released a short time ago, as the strikes on Iran continue today. Alongside the footage, a quote from CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper, who said, quote, "Now in our 5th week of the campaign, it is my operational assessment that we are making undeniable progress. We don't see their Navy sailing. We don't see their aircraft flying, and their air and missile defense systems have largely been destroyed, end quote. Right now, I want to talk much more about Operation.
Yeah, it wasn't very long.
In prime time. What did you kind of take away from that as you look at the operation as a whole?
Two primary points stood out to me. I don't think we were surprised that the president does have an ambition to finalize this war as soon as possible. So the 2 to 3 week mark, assuming we're able to stand by this deadline, does make sense. But that said, I think how he addressed the allies was very interesting. Of course, we've seen a bit of tension between Washington and Europe as a whole. And I think the president did an excellent job highlighting that the threat posed by Iran is more imminent to Europe versus the United States. And ultimately, some of these countries do need to step in. Number one, the Strait of Hormuz is closer to them. They rely on the supply chain of that area and the oil flow more than we do. But more importantly, the threats that's posed by Tehran, and I'm talking about the ballistic missiles, they can reach London. And now we know that as a fact. It's no longer a speculation, which is why it's important for some of these countries to step in, like the president said. I do think it's going to somehow implicate our calculation with Europe when it comes to the war in Ukraine. I think Washington was more optimistic about some sort of coalition, not just from Europeans, by the way, greater Middle Eastern countries as well, states by the Persian Gulf that have been struck by Iran that have not retaliated meaningfully. So that's interesting. But what really stood out to me even more than this is how he framed his conception of success. And once he highlighted that the idea was to ensure that the Islamic Republic can no longer pose a threat outside of its borders, meaning that internally is not, at least on the overt level, is not going to be part of Washington's calculations as to how the regime conducts itself. Of course, we're talking about a rise of executions. We're talking about an Islamic Republic that massacred about 40,000 people in January, and the president did mention that. So I know he noted that the regime change was never part of the ambition here. That said, his February 28th speech was rather clear that ultimately, once this operation concludes, the government will be for the Iranian people to take. As he noted verbatim, it will be yours to take, talking to the Iranian people. That is probably still on the cards. That said, 2 to 3 weeks, Josh, is a long time. A lot can happen. We just have to wait and see what they have up their sleeve. And another angle is the Israeli operations, how they see this playing out in the next couple of weeks.
Do you think we are going to see more of these countries that could potentially join in with the Strait of Hormuz? Because we know that British officials are saying they're going to hold some kind of call today with about 30 other nations to discuss all of this as a whole. As you mentioned, we heard from President Trump, who said that these different countries need to step up. They need to go and kind of take the strait back at this point. So is that a real possibility? Anyone that we see actually entering in to help out?
It is a real possibility, and the word entering in international waters might be playing into Tehran's calculation a little bit, because ultimately it is not Iranian territory. It is international waters, and according to international law, it needs to be kept open. So the flow of goods, vessels, supply chain is crucial to that area, of course. That said, I do think a lot of European countries are looking closely at Tehran and Washington, see how the talks are going to play out. Iran, of course, has an incentive to conclude this war, to provide some sort of incentive, and the only leverage they currently have is the strait. Because of that, if they get a proper ceasefire from the United States and maybe get some reassurances from Washington that the Trump administration is going to halt some of these leadership assassinations, that might pave the way for a greater understanding. I would not call it an agreement, but a greater understanding between the two that the strait should remain open. And once that happens, once the war is concluded, then I don't think there would be necessarily a need for Europeans to step in. When it comes down to the greater coalition addressing Tehran's threats by the chokehold, it ultimately comes down to how long this war is going to take. If we surpass the 2 to 3 week mark for whatever reason, if Tehran escalates, or if Israel thinks the job is not done, or Washington somehow realizes that the enriched uranium needs to be taken out, or a variety of reasons can extend this campaign more, then it is very likely for us to see some of these countries stepping in. But as of now, I think whoever would watch the speech last night has an understanding that probably Washington has an appetite to end this, and Iran also has an incentive to abide by this. We just have to wait and see.
Any surprise here? And I have an idea of what you're going to say, but any surprise that the messaging we're hearing from President Trump doesn't match what we're hearing from Iranian leadership?
Of course it
I have
doesn't.
to imagine here that Iran doesn't
Are you joking?
want to look weak, especially in
course
front of
not.
their
Of
own
course not.
residents, citizens there, but also other countries around the world, which would maybe explain why we're not seeing all of that match up.
Absolutely, Josh. You could not have
Dude.
stated it more accurately. To
Duh.
Tehran compromise.
Duh. Of course Iran doesn't want to look weak. Of course they're going to pump out some propaganda, much like that letter they released. If you read it, Jesus Christ. I covered Trump's speech last night, which I don't know, man. I found it, Trump. He's not a very good public speaker. We all know this, but he was visibly shaken, and rightfully so, because, that letter, people are going to latch on to that BS. I mean, it was littered with lies. There was some truth in it, don't get me wrong. There was some truth in it. But, by and large, they're playing on, the United States' media and their willingness to, go after keywords and pander to a particular demographic, and that's exactly what they were capitalizing on with that letter. If you don't believe it was full of lies, I have a video for you with sources. Anyway, yeah, Iran doesn't want to look weak. Of course it's going to push back. I would expect that if they are actually making any kind of negotiations with Trump, they wouldn't want to admit that either. Is that what's going on? Who's to say? But, when it comes down to it, the people of Iran are what matter here. And, I still stand firm with the make Iran Persia again. Because it's the Persians that are sick of this Islamic Republic and the atrocities that they commit. And that should be our main motivation, is liberating the people. Unfortunately, it seems like it's just a byproduct and a selling point of the war. But, at this point, man, I don't know what... I'm going to be curious to see how it all unfolds. I do know one thing. It's going to run oil up. You can bet your ass on that. I mean, look at this. Nano is already surpassing 110. And the debt collectors are already calling me. The heat map is looking pretty damn red. We can probably expect that. People are going to rotate out of what they've been in all week and right into energy. We can expect that rotation for sure. Bitcoin, relatively flat. We can expect that too. Looks like it took a dive last night right at 1 o'clock or 9 o'clock. That's when everything started. Right when Trump got on and started talking, right? God, people are so fickle. These moves don't really mean that that's a reflecting of its actual value, right? This is just people reacting. Now, when it holds there, that's kind of reflective. But, yeah, I mean, look, the dollar jumped up right at 9 o'clock, 9:15. Took a second. Dollar ran up, which made silver come right down. All this happened right when Trump went on the air. God, people are so predictable. Right, so we'll go back over and watch Iran get more obliterated.
They're the ones that have targeted the repression infrastructure. They're the ones that have carried out a lot of these assassination attempts. So although the two might be having a different interpretation as to what success looks like, when it comes to the core objectives, they're very much aligned. So it'd be very interesting to see how they're going to sort this out in the next few weeks, whether Trump is going to have an appetite to dictate what Israelis can or cannot strike, or whether, Netanyahu is going to advance his own thought process, given that he needs more internal legitimacy, of course, politically in Israel. He's facing a lot of backlash, and
he sure is.
Of course, elections are coming up, so he needs to have some major win by by, let's say, September, because elections are in October, similar to Trump, by the way. So if he's able to effectively conclude this before the midterms, it would benefit him greatly politically. They both have an incentive, but the bar is higher for Netanyahu.
Talking about, and this is going in reverse a little bit, the messaging there coming in from Iranian leadership, so to speak, talking about the actual blackout of the internet, media, all of that. Wanted to get your take as to whether or not we know if that is still as a whole going on. Because if that's the case, of course, we know that residents, citizens there are relying almost on each other to provide information because they can't get it from those outside.
Iran, the leadership in Iran doesn't want the people to hear. They want to control the narrative. If they could black out the internet here in America, you can bet their ass they would. And that's so they can pump everybody's empty skulls with BS.
Of course, this is the longest internet blackout. We can't really compare it to the Cold War or North Korea, at least yet. They're getting some sort of information a lot of times through satellite dish and just like satellite channels, some through digital media, of course. And as long as a few people within, let's say, one neighborhood,
I think he meant social media,
they can educate their colleagues, peers, and neighbors. So that is still there. But again, it signals to us that, of course, Tehran is really paranoid about internal backlash. That's why they kept the internet out for up to a month now, which has major implications, not just for citizen lives, but also the economy as a whole. The country cannot function without the internet in the 21st century.
They don't care.
Challenges are really there. I think it'd be interesting for us to see how Iranians are going to react once there's going to be a call for protest, whether by the administration or by the opposition leader, Crown Prince. We do have to rely on a lot of internet for these occasions. But that said, what's really interesting is that some of the Israeli strikes actually targeted the apparatus that is responsible for internet censorship.
Good.
And after that, we saw a bit more information go through. I was getting more messages from inside the country. I think it was about 4 or 5 days ago. So there are some measures in place to ensure that Iranians would be receptive to the messaging that's going to come from the West, because ultimately they cannot rely on their own regime. They have to talk to Israel, America, and the Crown Prince to know whether they should mobilize, when, and how.
You're right, exactly.
Right, I always ask you this here, but what are you keeping an eye on? What are we watching for in the coming hours, days, weeks? Because, again, this could, of course, go on for a while. And we've been watching those developments in real time. So what are you specifically watching for as this all plays out?
One key thing that Trump noted is he said that in the next few weeks, the attacks against the Islamic Republic might be unprecedented. Of course, I'm paraphrasing a bit, but that's what he basically alluded to. And one interesting thing about the campaign is that it has destroyed and eliminated a lot of the military leadership, but the political figures in charge of running the country are still around. I'm thinking about the intel minister, the judiciary head, who's the former intel minister, the head of the National Security Council, many other individuals such as that are not RGC are still calling the shots. So I'm really looking out for any wave of assassinations, primarily by Israelis, to destroy this political leadership. And that would probably happen if Washington and Tehran cannot reach an agreement. If that were to happen, and if U.S. were to actually greenlight or facilitate the elimination of some of these range of leaders, I'm not talking about one or two people, I'm thinking of dozens, that would really implicate Tehran's decision-making, of course. It's notable that they left these people alive by design, hoping for a deal, but let's see if Tehran knows how to play its cards, because at this point, the genuine regime collapse is on the horizon. It's very, very sensitive times, and it is in their interest to play ball, but ultimately, this is not a rational regime. We'll have to wait and see.
And I want to ask one more question here, because we are, of course, getting this information, as I mentioned, in real time, and we're hearing that not only is Iran once again today basically producing those strikes on Israel, but also again on the UAE. There's explosions that have been reported in Dubai, which sounds as though that's more intercepting of missiles versus actual, catastrophic damage there. But what does that say that you still see Iran pretty much attacking the different Gulf Arab states there? We're not just saying they're targeting the U.S. and Israel, but it looks like they are hitting in different areas as well.
There are three main takeaways. Number one, the timing is important because they had, to an extent, scaled back or at least toned down some of their attacks in the last 72 hours. Now, as soon as the president makes a remark talking about ending the war, they're going to escalate. That signals that, of course, they want to save face. They want to ensure that they inflict as much political cost as possible. As soon as they pick up on the fact that Washington doesn't have an appetite to keep this war going, they're going to exploit that and try to, like I said, inflict more costs by targeting civilians, by regionalizing the war. That's one. And the other two really points at Iranian capabilities. Number one, it might be indicative of the fact that China and Russia are supplying the Islamic Republic with more munitions. There's some reports saying that China, Beijing, is transferring different anti-ship cruise missiles to the Islamic Republic. We know Russia tried to do something similar with drones. So that is also crucial. Also, we need to finalize and exactly narrow down if this new wave of attack was just missiles or is it primarily drones and missiles? Because again...
Okay, as we can see, oil is still steadily climbing. That is the nano crude futures. These are the ones I tend to play with. It's not Brent. This is Brent. It's still up. As you can see, they all took a jump right when Donald Trump decided to start speaking, which I find funny. The dollar jumping along with it because, hey, petrodollar, right? Silver taking a dive along with gold because the dollar is running up. All these things are related. We know this. Pre-market looking mostly red, all except for the energy sector, which is to be expected. People rotated out of what they've been rotating in to go right back into the energy sector. Oil. We can see this trend continue. Bitcoin, sucking it. But oil, we can expect to continue its upward path. I expect it to run on up to 150. The longer this goes, it's going to take a slow climb. You could probably chart this trend right here, the speed of which it is rising. You could probably expect it to continue at that same speed all the way up to 150, maybe $180 a barrel, providing nothing changes. But, you know, every single catalyst we get will affect what's going on.
They do see this war as something that was promised to them, as help by the West. It is humanitarian intervention. They do want this regime gone, and talking to folks on the ground, of course, they're suffering so much, but they're willing to abide by the rules. And
I want to take a look at Newsmax.
The ship itself provides radiation protection. Even the space suit on my space walk, my suit gave me a certain amount of protection from radiation. The radiation.
Yeah, no, they're just talking about a space. Let's see what Sky News is up to yet. Anything? They're talking about Trump. It's always good to get a perspective other than our own, isn't it? Let's hear what Australia is saying about Trump.
We've beaten and completely decimated Iran. They are decimated, both militarily and economically and every other way. And the countries of the world that do receive oil through the Hormuz Strait must take care of that passage. They must cherish it. They must grab it and cherish it. They can do it easily. We will be helpful, but they should take the lead in protecting the oil that they so desperately depend on. So to those countries that can't get fuel, many of which refuse to get involved in the decapitation of Iran, we had to do it ourselves.
They're going to get involved now.
I have a suggestion. Number one, buy oil from the United States of America. We have plenty. We have so much.
We have so
number
much.
Two, build
That's
up
true.
some delayed courage. Should have done it before. Should have done it with us, as we asked. Go to the Strait and just take it.
Just take it.
Use it for yourselves. I've made clear from the beginning of Operation Epic Fury that we will continue until our objectives are fully achieved. Thanks to the progress we've made, I can say tonight that we are on track to complete all of America's military objectives shortly, very shortly.
Very shortly.
We're going to hit them extremely hard over the next 2 to 3 weeks. We're going to bring them back to the Stone Ages where they belong.
Good.
Well, our Middle East commentator, Tara Kangalu, joins us now. And Tara, speaking in the middle of the night, our time, you bravely stayed up to watch it. But nothing fundamentally new in this speech. It felt a bit like a cut and paste of lots of things we've seen on Truth Social over the last few days.
Yes. I see where you're going already. I want to pull up this woman here. She looks like she's talking about Iran. Okay, where are we at? That was Bloomberg.
Rukai, appreciate the breakdown. Thanks for joining the program. Rukai Ibrahim there of BCA Research. It's not just about the inability to pay the prices that crude demands right now, an energy product. It's the absence of the product right now. It's the actual shortages that Rukai is talking about that have started in Asia and you might see elsewhere in a few weeks' time.
These are pandemic-era shortages in terms of just the inability to move around the way that you previously had, and potentially, when does that become codified in restrictions from governments saying don't use these certain supplies?
Just to give you a picture of the backwardation right now, we've talked a lot about the 110 at the front end of the curve, of the futures curve for WTI, around 109.60 at the moment. Let's take December. I've always had one eye on the back end of the year. That's trading around 73. So when people talk about backwardation, if you're outside the oil market, just tuning in, interested in what's happening here, all that really means is the front end of the futures curve is way up here, and then way down here further out is where crude prices will be, potentially, in the future.
The expectation, it's going to go back down, way back down. And actually, that number has been going down over the past couple of trading sessions, so the normalization is widely expected.
Up next on the program, more data, jobless claims just around the corner.
There's my song. Him just too handsome kitty. Mirror, 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 mirror. This is a song I used to sing to my cat. Him just too handsome kitty. Yep. My poor little handsome kitty that vanished on me. He vanished. That's what he did. He vanished. Love that cat. He was awesome. Oh, and what a gorgeous kitty he was, too. What a beautiful cat. Just a gorgeous kitty. What is Newsmax saying?
Polished black granite is emblazoned with the names of 24 astronauts, including the fallen crew of Apollo 1, led by Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger Chaffee. More would join the honored dead from the Space Shuttle Challenger and Columbia. Tourists to Kennedy Space Center can marvel at some of mankind's greatest space vehicles, like the Space...
Man, I know exactly where I was when Challenger exploded. Well, not exactly. I know approximately where I was. Well, it is coming up on 8:30. Not too very much going on in the markets. I am struggling to find any decent news coverage, but I'm pretty sure we already know most of it. We pretty much know most of what's going on out there, don't we? Any moment the House meets to discuss DHS funding. Honestly, I just don't care at this point. I mean, I care. I just don't expect anything to come out of it because they've been talking about this BS for forever. Somebody has to break, right?
Miles an hour in 4 minutes or whatever it was. Host of Scrolling with Haley podcast, Haley Karania, and political strategist and CEO of Compass Strategies, Luke Ball. Guys, before I get to any of the new stuff that we have planned, it is real cool, Haley, to watch a, 30-story building launch up to 10,000 miles an hour into space.
30 stories
Yes,
is a
and we
bit
have
of a
President
stretch.
Trump to thank for investing into Space Force. I think it's wonderful that we're going to the moon for the first time in decades. And I'm a little bit of a conspiracy theorist myself. I used to wonder, why haven't we been back in decades? So I think this is a great opportunity to show those conspiracy theorists like myself wrong and show the rest of the world that this is what American exceptionalism looks like.
Yeah, I mean, Luke, pretty impressive. But what's funny to me is the technology basically on its face didn't really change in 50 years. They still use the launch boosters that separate, they splash down. Meanwhile, Elon Musk is landing those things and using them again.
Yeah.
This is the United States flexing its muscle to the rest of the world.
Exactly.
And those astronauts, when they get outside of our planet, get to see the entire solar system that just lays before them. I'm sure that's an awe-inspiring experience.
Absolutely.
And that many of us can only ever dream to ever come close to that.
You're damn
and it's
right.
just astounding that this isn't the first time, as we've been talking about, that the United States has flexed its muscle on the world stage. For decades going back, we led in the space race. We just lead the rest of the world. And under this president's leadership, we're going back once again. And I'm just proud to be an American at this point.
Here in America, we're better than you, and we know it. Talking to you, Canada. Haley, I want to get to this, though. This is some news. We're going to keep monitoring this. We're going to keep it on screen here while this whole thing's going on. If something changes, we're going to bring it to you. But while we're talking and just watching this little tiny dot up in the endless sky there, Don Lemon goes on a podcast and talks about how he could lead literally how he could be president. Roll this.
If I wanted to, I know people are going to think I'm crazy. This is going to be the headline, and people are going to laugh about it. I think I could be president of the United States. I could definitely run this country better than Donald Trump.
Paper towel roll could, but yes.
Yeah. Do you know what else I think that I could run better
What a
than
bunch
most
of pieces of
people?
shit.
A news organization. I could come in and fix the bulk of their problems.
Yeah, I bet you could.
No time flat.
Yeah, I bet you could, you sack of human shit.
This is delusional. This is narcissism at its
Absolutely.
finest. The craziest thing is he says that he can run. Then he says that he can win. Then he says he could be better than Donald J. Trump. I don't think so. I would urge him, Don Lemon, I think he's soft launching this. I think he wants the DNC to pluck him out of obscurity so that he doesn't have to do his failing podcast anymore. And, he's the DEI hire that the Democrats are so desperate for. The only person they've got right now is Gavin Newsom. And, they hate straight white men. So I think Don Lemon might be their only hope.
I know, but that was their thing. They're going to have to bring back white Christian males that are straight in order to win something. Here's something, though, I could have told you a long time ago, Luke. Some of the most popular U.S. graduate degrees aren't worth the money. I'm not talking about the ones that just put this rocket up into space that we're still watching. A new study broke down the very risky proposition, according to a study released by the Post-Secondary Education and Economics Research Center at American University.
That's fascinating and all. But I'm going to go over to Bloomberg.
Underestimated how much strength collectively, as analysts across Wall Street, underestimated how much strength was in the U.S. economy, both in the labor front as well as in the manufacturing and other sectors fronts. How much does this buffer the U.S. economy from any kind of growth shock, and how much does it just sort of feed into the ability to absorb price increases and pass it along in the form of inflation?
Mike McKee still with us. Mike, let's talk about that. To Lisa's point, how much momentum did we have coming into this month and moving into April?
We did have some decent momentum. And when you look at the sales numbers, American consumers still out there, even though we have seen some decline in consumers' confidence. The question is, do they continue? Most of the data we have now is before the war started. We didn't get the latest retail sales numbers for March yet. So let's see how people hang in there and how spending patterns might change given the cost of gasoline. Labor market hasn't changed in months now. Basically, companies aren't hiring, but they're not firing either. Everybody waiting to see what's happening with tariffs and now with the war.
Mike, does this give the Federal Reserve more space to worry about the other side of the mandate?
It does. They have basically said they're more worried about inflation than they are about jobs right now, because inflation they know is going to rise because headline inflation will go up with oil prices. But does it get into other parts of the economy? And what is the continued lagged effect of tariffs? That's what they are worried about, and they're not going to know for a while. I made the argument that it's a little bit easier, maybe, job for Kevin Warsh if he joins the Fed on time, because now he can tell the president, with inflation inflation above 4%, and predictions are we're going to get there based on oil prices, I can't justify arguing for lower rates. Instead of having to say the economy is strong and we don't need to lower rates, he can say, well, inflation's too high. So maybe he stays out of the president's crosshairs for a couple of months.
Yeah, good luck, Mike. Thanks for that. Appreciate it. Mike McKee, thank you very much. Wishful thinking there. I'd love to know how that conversation would go.
Good luck. It's look at the inflation levels, and Mr. President's going to say, absolutely not. We want those rates lowered. We already are hearing it right now.
Looking ahead to payrolls Friday, let's get to the data. The estimate's 65K. That's the median in our survey. Talked about this very wide range. At the high end, we're looking for 151. That's the high estimate in our survey. The low is negative 16,000. The number drops 8:30 tomorrow morning. We'll be here in the studio right here at Bloomberg Surveillance, live from 7 a.m. Eastern Time all the way through to 10 o'clock. Let's give you an update with Alejandra Grindo of Ned Davis Research on what she's seeing in the data. Alejandra, welcome to the program. The data so far this week, pretty strong. How much momentum's in this economy?
Yeah, so really, thanks for having me again. So yeah, really strong data. The jobless claims do reflect the post-war environment, but as Mike McKee mentioned earlier, a lot of the data has also been pre-war. But ultimately, the bottom line is we went into this crisis and maybe not a booming position, but at least far from recession territory. And typically, we've found is that when you have policy uncertainty, when you have wars, the economy tends to be slightly more resilient if it's starting from a good starting point. In other words, we tend to shrug it off. That being said, I don't think we'll come out of this unscathed. Affordability isn't necessarily great. Long-term yields have risen, so it's a little harder to buy a home, obviously. Maybe the Fed will delay the potential rate cuts that we were expecting. So we do see downside risk from this crisis.
I don't expect too many people to really care, but this is my kitty. She is turning 11 this month. 11 years old, my little kitty's been with me for 11 years. It's the longest I've ever had a pet of any kind. She's been a good kitty, that's all.
On parallels to, say, 2022, right, where you had that oil price shock. And if you compare, so I did mention U.S. not headed for a recession, but if you compare now versus back in 2022, where you did see those larger second round effects, and it's obviously freaked out a lot of central banks around the world, things were different then. I mean, the starting point in inflation was much higher, demand was much stronger, and it was almost like you had this supply shock already jump on something that was already headed toward, central banks that were already headed toward excessive tightening. So I think right now, yes, things aren't by any means horrible, but the outlook is a little more balanced. Of course, it has to do also with how long the war lasts, right? I mean, that's what everybody's saying, and none of us actually know. So anytime you have these higher energy prices, and if they stay for a long period of time, say 6 months to a year, which, as you talked about earlier, with the backwardation of the oil curve, a lot of people don't anticipate that, but assuming that does happen, then that will get into our heads, create second round effects, and then lead to a long-term spike and long-term inflation expectations. And that's really what I think the Fed's going to be looking at.
It's a complicated backdrop for the Fed.
Yes.
It's an even more complicated backdrop for the European Central Bank. I just wonder whether the inflationary pressure is going to be similar overseas, or whether it's actually going to be more, I don't want to use the transitory word, but more transitory, more temporary in nature because of
I'm going to take a break from some of this just so we can take a break and have a little laugh. Gotta have a laugh every now and then, yeah? Just gonna go over to Facebook and see what these jackasses are up to. Israel is targeting the negotiators to ensure we can't end the war and to ensure that the Iranian leaders who come next will be more extreme, thereby ensuring whatever. Who believes this nonsense? Why? Who does that profit? Really? Like it profits Israel? Really? Like these are such like it's such a stupid worldview. Am I wrong? Tell me, by all means. Please tell me. Why I suddenly stopped talking about Iran.
To me in Iran, I'm not going to say who, might have been threatened because of my activity about Iran on social media in America. And of course, I contemplate. On one hand, I wanted to be their voice. On the other hand, I didn't want to be responsible for anything happening to them because of me. Without going into too much detail, I can finally speak about Iran again without putting anybody inside Iran in danger. Meanwhile, Iranian people inside Iran are entering their 30th day without connection to internet. All of our communications with our friends and family inside Iran has been through phone cards. Only they can call us. We can't call them. And the cards are obviously very expensive. I decided to jump on here and give you a bit of an update of what is going on, at least based on the information that I do have. Iranians inside Iran are feeling all the feelings. On one hand, they are very hopeful that this war is going to end into a replacement of the current tyrannical Islamic regime. On the other hand, the bombs are real. They are falling next to them, not specifically on them. Obviously, the bombs are all very, very targeted, but still, they are bombs and they are terrifying. However, they are getting more scared when the bombing stops. Why? Because they know that if this war ends without the Islamic regime ending, this will not turn out well for Iranian people and for people outside of Iran. Right now, the Islamic regime is doing everything they can to buy time. The Iranian people's hope is that Trump doesn't stop before making sure the regime has ended. Iran is not Iraq. The transitional leader Iranian people inside Iran have been calling for, Reza Pahlavi, just gave a speech at CPAC. He's made it clear that he's ready. He has the first 100-day plan for when they go in and replace the current regime so there is no power vacuum. His speech gave all of us so much hope and conviction that he is the right person to be leading this. He's even partnered up with his opponents, anybody but the Islamic regime, so that he can make sure we're moving towards a democratic Iran once Iran becomes free. And his most touching part of his speech, in my opinion, was when he said, imagine Iran going from death to America to God bless America. Imagine the impact a free Iran would have on the world. Many of you asked why I suddenly stopped talking about Iran.
Yeah, she makes a great point. She's got a great rack too. Virginia's redistricting fight ramps up as opponents wield Barack Obama's past comments. CNN trying. Iran's regime has executed PMOI political prisoners. Babak Alipour, and I don't know how to pronounce those names. More prisoners face imminent execution. Urgent global action needed. 34 years old, holds a bachelor's degree in law. He was arrested in January 2024. He was previously arrested in November 2018. Was imprisoned for 4 years. This other guy, he was an electrical engineer. They were sentenced to death by the regime's criminal judge, head of the Revolutionary Court. The regime is trying to hide its weakness by executing political prisoners. That's what it does, baby. That's why we need to hammer the shit out of them. This is why we can't let up. These people need a voice. And to my liberal family, where is the outrage? Hypocrites. Hypocrites, hypocrites, hypocrites. Hello there, Gung de Messi 30. Wow. Thanks for coming back. This is now the 4th stream of mine I've seen you in. Can I count on you to give me yet another like that I've been asking you for every stream you've been in? I really appreciate your patronage. Thanks for coming, buddy. We're just scouring Facebook, looking at memes and trying to catch a little bit of a laugh because there is so little to laugh about in the world these days. The news is obviously depressing, and yeah, if you're here for money, information, the only thing worth talking about really is how oil has ran up to about $110 a barrel. Excuse me. Yeah, that's right. $110-ish a barrel. And everything else took a bit of a dive. The U.S. dollar jumped up with oil because, petrodollar. And since like gold and silver is inversely pegged to the dollar goes up, they come down, those came down, Bitcoin came down. Everything now in pre-market is rotating out of everything that was going up throughout the week, throughout the beginning of the week. Everything that was going up is now rotating out and into oil. That seems to be the only thing that's going up, which you can make some decent money on it. God, I wish I had some money to throw at it, because I need money desperately. I just don't have it. But yeah, pre-market is currently going on here. Let's I'll pop it up on the screen just for you, buddy. So there's oil. That's the Brent crude oil. This is your nano crude oil futures, 111.50. And then Bitcoin. All of these jumps, look at the time. Took place right at 9 p.m. last night, right when Trump got on stage and started talking. Do you know about the 3 Indonesian military soldiers that died because of Israel's missile? No, I don't. Tell me about it. So, can you put a link? I don't know if the chat will allow you to send a link in, but try. But yeah, silver, gold. Look at everything right when everything moved. It was right at 9 o'clock last night, right when Trump started speaking. And then, of course, there's your heat map. Everything is down in pre-market. The only thing that's up is the energy sector, where oil lives. Imagine that. There's your 3-year return on your ETFs. I mean, that is your safe haven. I want to see how the S&P 500 futures are looking. Yeah, down. Look at that. They were about to run up. "20 minutes before Trump took the stage, and then as soon as he did, bang! Damn, dude. It took for a solid hour and then some, and still going down. S&P 500 futures sucking it. Okay, so 3 Indonesian military soldiers that died because of an Israel missile. Is there any context to that? Like, was Israel likely firing back and retaliating against Iran? Because, what Iran does is they love to stash weapons in neighborhoods, they'll in schools and in hospitals. And then they'll fire missiles from these locations at Israel. And then when Israel retaliates, it makes Israel look like the bad guy because they fired at a school. When in truth, they were striking back and retaliating against Iran firing first. It's my understanding that Iran is the primary aggressor in everything between Israel and Iran. And, Hamas and Hezbollah, the Houthis, those are all proxies of Iran. People want to cite genocide in Palestine. It's the same scenario. These pieces of human garbage fire these missiles from these civilian locations at Israel, and then when Israel retaliates, somehow the world notices that and doesn't pick up on what caused it. So I'm wondering. I appreciate you being here, bud. So I'm wondering if there's anything similar with this Indonesia stuff you're talking about. And why would Indonesia's military even be involved right now? Yeah, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna look that up. Let's see here. I'm not seeing anything recent on YouTube. Oh, wait a minute. No, I'm not seeing anything on YouTube, at least. I haven't gone further yet. Yeah, I'm seeing nothing on YouTube about it. I would assume it would be in the news if that were true. Okay. Okay, I see. From trtworld.com, and then Metro TV News. Antaria News, government confirms Indonesians safe in Iran and Israel. Oh wait, never mind, that was a year ago. This is 2 days ago. Okay. Found the story here. Indonesia calls for urgent UN meeting after UNIFIL soldiers killed amid Israel's invasion of Lebanon. Well, what were the Indonesian soldiers doing there? Indonesia on Tuesday condemned the Israeli attacks on Lebanon while seeking an emergency UN Security Council meeting over the killing of 3 of its peacekeepers in Lebanon. The recurrence of such heinous attacks against Indonesian peacekeepers within a short span of time is utterly unacceptable. This cannot be treated as... I want to know what caused it. What? They were killed in a blast targeting their vehicle. Peacekeepers. Another Indonesian peacekeeper was killed when a projectile struck a United Nations interim force. Israel has pounded Lebanon with airstrikes. Launched a ground invasion after Hezbollah responded to the killing of Iran's then supreme leader. After Hezbollah responded. I love how the media is actually characterizing Hezbollah as a legitimate force. It's one of Iran's proxy armies. They responded. No, they don't get to respond. Hezbollah doesn't get to respond. Yeah, while this is certainly tragic, I would prefer that nobody die. While this is tragic, I am definitely seeing a bit of a bias in the reporting of the story.
As fighting between Israeli forces and Hezbollah members rages, the Israeli Prime Minister orders his army to expand its ground incursion into Lebanon.
I have instructed that the existing security buffer zone be further expanded in order to definitively thwart the threat of invasion and to keep anti-tank missile fire away from our borders.
Netanyahu is also under growing pressure from residents of northern Israel, many of whom don't want to face another mass evacuation when Hezbollah began bombing the area in support of Gaza 2 years ago.
In support of Gaza.
אבל אין פה מדינה אחריך. בשביל להצליח אתה צריך מדינה. אי אפשר לבד. גמרתם את קריית שמונה, גמרתם את יישובי הגדר, גמרתם הכל. גמרתם הכל כבר. מה אתם עושים?
On the ground, Israeli forces are pushing deeper into Lebanese territory, while warplanes continue striking villages across southern Lebanon and the capital Beirut. As the conflict with Hezbollah enters its 4th week. Hezbollah has been firing rockets and drones into northern and central Israel since early March. The group says it's also targeting Israeli troops now operating inside villages in southern Lebanon. At least 5 Israeli soldiers have been killed in Lebanon since early March. And despite past claims that Israel had destroyed Hezbollah's military capabilities, Netanyahu says the group still poses a threat.
Yeah.
The Israeli military has issued evacuation orders for hundreds of thousands of people, depopulating dozens of towns, forcing more than 1 million residents from southern Lebanon to move north of the Litani River, around 18 miles from the border. Israel plans to occupy that area south of the river, nearly a tenth of Lebanon's territory.
The Lebanese front, although minor compared to the Gulf front, but is very complicated and very dangerous, and I feel that the people of Lebanon seem to be paying a very heavy price.
More than 1,200 people have been killed in Lebanon, according to local authorities, while the United Nations says the humanitarian crisis is worsening.
Meanwhile, 40,000 people were killed in Iran. Notice how they're not making any of those comparisons.
With some 1.2 million people displaced. Here in Tel Aviv,
1 million people were murdered by Iran over the last 47 years. 30-something thousand people were executed in January of this year alone. Many of them kids. Iran strung kids up, hung them by crane, sometimes 6 at a time. Iran pays and funds Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis in Yemen. They're not a legitimate force. They are not a legitimate country. They're not a they have no sovereignty. We must distinct between Hamas and the people of Palestine. The people of Palestine don't deserve any of this. People of Palestine are everyday citizens like you and me. Hamas is the force that doesn't get any legitimacy and shouldn't, because they are a proxy military force paid by Iran to fulfill their prophecy nonsense of destroying Israel. So anytime I see anything regarding Hamas, I will automatically consider them an enemy. Hamas, Hezbollah, the Islamic Republic of Iran, and the Houthis. They don't get any legitimacy in my eyes. So, when I see something about Hamas responding, I don't care what we've done to Hamas. There's nothing about anything they do that I consider to be legitimate, because they are automatically categorized as just another extension of the ridiculousness of Iran. Now, these Indonesian soldiers, it's a shame that they were killed. It sounds like they were collateral damage, because I don't know if Hamas has any Indonesian soldiers within their ranks. I would hope not. But yeah, this is a very complex set of rules. I think we can all agree this is a very complex situation. Yes, I agree with your last statement, Gungdamasi 30. Yes, that is true. They hung children. Allow me to play you a video, if you will indulge me. This is a video that it's one of my videos that I made, and I've got the sources to back it up. This isn't just trust me, bro. I've got the sources to back it up.
Taxes was chasing updates. Now Taxes is a TurboTax expert.
If you don't support. All right, let me first show you. These are the sources, okay? These are the sources I used in everything you're about to see. UN Special Reporting on Human Rights in Iran, the report of July 2024. UN Fact-Finding Mission, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, Iran Human Rights in Norway, PubMed, Charles Kurzman, Memoirs of Grand Ayatollah. From his own memoirs, some of this comes, okay? Time Magazine, Wikipedia Britannica, 2026 Iran Massacres, okay? So now that you have that, all of this information comes from those sources. Let me know when you're about to puke and I'll stop it.
War against the Islamic Republic of Iran, then you have a hole in your head. You want some facts? I'll give you some facts. 1988, Khomeini signed a secret document to kill every political prisoner in Iran. It took place in 32 cities. It took 5 months. 5,000 people, at a minimum, were killed during that time. Khomeini's deputy wrote that 30,000 were killed, and he also said children 13 years of age were hanged from cranes 6 at a time under the direct order of the Ayatollah. Prisoners were loaded in forklift trucks 6 at a time and killed every half hour. 2015, 977 protesters were murdered. 4,025 people were executed in the 2 years after the protests. 1,000 people were executed in 2005 alone. The 2019 fuel prize protest, 1,500 people were killed. 2009, during the Green Movement, 72 protesters were murdered. 2022, during the Women's Life Freedom Movement, 551 protesters were killed, mostly women. 68 of them were children. 104 people were killed in one single day in Zahedan on September 30th, 2022. Between December 2025 and January 25th, 2026, 22,000 people were arrested for protesting. During this time, over 36,500 were killed. 30,300 people were killed during January 8th and 9th, which was reported by the doctors in the hospital.
2 days.
Between 1980 and 1988, Iran sent boys as young as 12, and they sent the elderly into minefields with a key and told them it was a key to the gate of paradise.
Minefields.
During this time, approximately 70 people were killed every single day. February 15th, 1979, the Islamic Revolution was only 11 days old when the killing started. 4,605 people confirmed executed by 1982. 9,500 people executed by 1985. 40,000 people were arrested in those 6 years. They consisted of teachers, lawyers, gays, Jews. And you think these people don't need liberation from this absolute insanity? Stop clinging to party lines and recognize the truth. The truth is the Islamic Republic of Iran is a terrorist organization fueled by ridiculous ideologies and theocratic nonsense. The Islamic Republic of Iran must die.
Yeah.
Just be honest. The only reason you're against this war is because Trump. That's it. You can't see past your hatred for Trump, which I'll grant you, you have perfectly good reason to despise the man. I'm not doubting that. I just find it highly hypocritical that so many of you stand so firm on your party lines in the face of absolute justification for crushing these complete pieces of human garbage. How do you sleep at night? Would you like to know why these animals do the things that they do? You should click right here.
Yeah. Fucking, we won't get into all that. But yeah, my the other video, explains their theocracy and why they do all the things, why they are in just, why they insist on destroying Israel. it all comes down to prophecy. You know, you ask, how could they? It all comes down to prophecy. They were instructed by their prophet to destroy Israel. You know, Armageddon won't come until they destroy Israel. And that's what fuels all of this. You know, make no mistake, Iran is the aggressor here. They love to frame it like Israel is the aggressor. Colonialism and imperial expansion. No. The only thing that fuels Iran's Islamic Republic is prophecy. That is at the heart of everything that they do. And according to their holy book, they're allowed by God to make up shit and lie and manipulate the media. So yeah, you can totally bet. You can totally bet all the money you want. Yeah, it's a shame, and yeah, that video ruins my mood, because it's a damn shame, and people like you and I can't do a damn thing about it, right? It's a damn shame. Make Iran Persia again. That's at the crux of it. You know, you can. It's okay to dislike Trump. I have no issue with that. You're free to make that, determination all you want. But once you know the truth about Iran, there's no two ways about it. There's no maybe this or maybe that. Once you know what Iran does and what they fund and, what they put their money into and why they put their money into things, when it's all based on prophecy nonsense, I mentioned. But yeah, I mean, like I said, you can dislike Trump all you want. That's fine. You very well may have good reason to. But make no mistake. When it comes to Iran or Israel, there's no choice. Unless you want to cover your eyes and pretend. Iran, every single war or battle that Israel has ever been in has always been a defensive, on a defensive standpoint. They've always only been defending themselves or responding to some other attack, typically funded by Iran. Because, like I said, it is in their prophecy. They must destroy Israel at any cost. And they've openly said, Iran has openly stated, Iran, Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis have all openly stated that if innocent people die, that's acceptable. In fact, they've even gone as far as to say they hope lots of innocent people die, because they turn around and will just blame Israel for it. Yeah, make no mistake, Iran is the true pieces of human garbage in all of this. Anyway, we are here for the market. So I'm going to go back to one of these people and see what they've got to say.
Excellent job, because he made clear why this operation was necessary to the scope of it, focusing on Iran's conventional capabilities, but also why now is important. And understandably, then acknowledging that why, with oil prices up or gas prices up, why it is short-term but necessary given the operation. I think the president was correct in saying how Operation Epic Fury has decimated Iran's conventional capabilities, and importantly, stating that
have a good day, bud. I appreciate you being here.
A shield of these conventional capabilities to hide behind with its nuclear ambitions to acquire a nuclear weapon. I think the president is right. In a world in which Iran has a nuclear weapon, they can't be trusted, and things would be far worse. This was the best opportunity to strike on Iran and prevent them from getting these ambitions. So I think the president is right that when it comes to the Strait of Hormuz, he has indicated he's open to a ceasefire, but wants the strait open. So he is indicating an openness to diplomacy, but also continuing a military campaign that's going to force Iran to the table to hopefully get things back to normal soon.
I want to play this next clip for you and talk about it on the other side. The president here talking about the mission in Iran and really being an investment in our children's future. Here he is.
This is a true investment in your children and your grandchildren's future.
It was one of those speeches,
that was just a quick
or
clip,
moments,
right?
I guess, in the speech last night that he was running at the heart.
We all saw the speech. I don't think we need to rehash that. I'm not here to convince you that Trump is good or anything. I am here to talk about money. And the situation with money, as you can see right here, is when the oil market took a jump. Can you see what time that was? Right at 9 o'clock. All right, Gung de Messi 30, thanks for being here. I appreciate you. Take care of yourself. Be safe. Spread the good word, baby. So as we can see, around 9 o'clock, right at 9 o'clock, right when Trump took the stage, oil began its ascent. And it will continue. That's the nano crude oil futures. That's the Brent crude oil futures. And it took the dollar right with it. All of this happened right at 9 o'clock, as with silver and gold coming down, because as we know, they are inversely related to the dollar. Dollar goes up, silver and gold goes down. Bitcoin took a similar approach, which is interesting that Bitcoin is now following gold and silver. I think that's a bit of a stretch, really, to say that. It's not following gold and silver, it was following Trump. And the S&P 500 futures took a dive as well. It's going to be an interesting market open. That being said, I'm going to put Bloomberg on. It is 20 minutes until the market bell. I'm going to go have me one last smoke before the morning bell comes. And I'm going to leave Bloomberg on. So
25% or even lower. If you want to get into the details, go to Bloomberg and find out where we go into that.
I'll be right back.
One of the sources told me, it was like, dude, we had dental floss coming into the United States, and because dental floss has a small piece of metal to cut your floss, people couldn't figure out the tariff they were supposed to be charged for that. So they are simplifying things like that, getting that off the table, so that American businesses, which already have so many troubles that they're dealing with, can just say, okay, this is one of the ones that we don't have to waste our time worrying about anymore.
All right, Joe, great having you here on set. Joe Doe, and highly recommend subscribing if you have a Bloomberg terminal in front of you to the Global Trade War newsletter. You can get these updates, important updates for business, obviously, and they come down to earnings results in your inbox every day. Tesla delivered, speaking of, 358,000 cars last quarter, missing estimates of 372,000. Let's get the latest from Craig Trudell, Bloomberg's managing editor for global business coverage. So, Craig, what do we know about Tesla's car-making business? Obviously not a huge part of its massive trillion-dollar-plus valuation.
Yeah, absolutely right. I think it's not a huge aspect of their valuation perhaps anymore, and yet it is what sort of pays the bills. And this is a business that has been trending in the wrong direction for a couple of years now. I think, the year ago comparison here was, sort of as easy as they come, right? First quarter of last year was one of the weakest since 2022. And so for this company to only manage about, a 6% call it increase year over year, when, the first quarter of 2025, they had significant production losses tied to the Model Y changeover. You had Musk in the White House making a lot of negative headlines. This is a really, downbeat showing from this company for the first quarter of this year.
Hey, Craig, thank you so much for joining us. With Tesla shares declining 4.2%, Bloomberg's Craig Trudell. I mean, at least if they're going to decline, they're going to decline 420, and Elon Musk would be happy about that. A quick check on markets this morning. A lot of negative risk sentiment piling up after no signs of de-escalation from the president in his address to the nation last night. We're down 1.5%. NASDAQ falls 2%. Huge moves in NYMEX and Brent crude. Just flagging, in case you're wondering why it looks like NYMEX is higher than Brent. NYMEX crude, that contract is currently the May one. You're looking at a June Brent contract, but both above $100 a barrel. But one of the biggest sources of pain in the market this morning. Coming up, shares of alternate asset manager fall. Blue Owl getting hammered, down 9.3%, saying that will limit redemptions from two of its private credit funds. We're going to get the latest coming up next right here on Bloomberg Open Interest.
know how the market day started.
Find out how it finishes.
Public markets to private markets.
From the micro to the macro.
Covering retail, entertainment, the business of sports.
The supply chains, trade policy, how it all is impacting the U.S. equity market as we drive to the closing bell at 4 p.m.
A holistic approach to covering financial markets.
If it matters to your life, we're covering it. I'm Katie Greifeld.
And I'm Romaine Bostic, and this is The Close.
Live every weekday.
Only on Bloomberg. Context changes everything.
The phone is, what's great about it is it's a well-developed gaming ecosystem, right? So it, folks know to find games there, but it's also a highly competitive gaming ecosystem. So its developedness gives you both that upside and that downside. But what's exciting is that now we are moving beyond the phone to the TV. So I mentioned like one of the big gaming areas we're going after. One of the big gaming areas we're going after now is, social gaming experiences that will show up on your TV. So we are now announcing, we're going to announce here actually, that we're going to have these social party games that you can play on your TV with your phone as the controller. And it's things like, recognizable games like Boggle, you got Pictionary, we've got a Lego party game. We, basically are gonna like unleash this with a bunch of creators, and they're gonna go figure out stuff that we didn't even imagine that they can do with that interactivity.
Bringing you up-to-the-minute global news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Jemana Bersecci in Davos, Switzerland, and this is Bloomberg.
Astonishing day for US technology.
Shaping the region's technology ecosystem.
Asia's biggest tech news and innovation.
Let's get now to high interest. Look what's making headlines around the world. NASA's Artemis II crew is now in orbit around the Earth after launching from Florida, marking the closest return, or will be the closest return to the moon in more than 50 years when they go around it. The mission clears a major hurdle for NASA as it works toward building a lunar base and eventually reaching Mars. And $350 million is what UK developer Nick Candy just scored for his mega mansion in London's Chelsea district, making it the most expensive home ever sold. The estate boasts a private lake, a pool, and palace-style grounds. This is in Chelsea, by the way.
Crazy.
Yeah, more than 2 acres in Chelsea.
Does that exist in Chelsea?
I mean, I didn't know about it. The property sparked a bidding war despite a cooling luxury market and it not even being listed. The dude sold his Chelsea home for $350.
I can't even sell my tiny little flat in London.
Is it in Chelsea?
It's not far from Chelsea.
Maybe I'll take a look.
Okay.
Pressure keeps building in private credit, Danny, as you well know. KKR and Blue Owl are capping withdrawals in retail-focused funds after a sharp spike in redemption requests. Blue Owl saw demands as high as 41%, while KKR exceeded its limit and is paying out pro rata. The moves signal rising investor unease across, continuing unease across the $1.8 trillion private credit market.
Yeah, a painful number. Let's get more on Blue Owl and the broader asset management industry with Bloomberg private equity reporter Allison McNeely. And Allison, I mean, it's hitting all the giants this morning, but 41% redemption requests. I mean, that is a punchy number. I don't think we've seen anything close to that from some of these other BDCs.
No, it is by far and away the largest number we've seen. And recall that it's a continuation of the trend. We saw this last quarter with Blue Owl. They did the asset sales of $1.4 billion of assets to try and meet redemption requests last time. And now, this time around, this quarter, they're saying, we're stopping at 5%. You got to get in line.
Yeah, and that makes sense, right? Because Blue Owl and others had exceeded that level previously, and that just, I mean, I don't know if moral hazard is the right term, but
well, I mean, you're supposed to be saying, look, these things are illiquid, and if you let everybody take out all of their requests, isn't it creating like a false illusion of liquidity?
I'm hearing from sources that there's actually a lot of anxiety and sort of debate within the alternative asset management industry right now about whether or not you enforce that 5% limit and essentially train the customer, hey, this is what you signed up for. You signed up for up to 5% of shares per quarter, Or do you do what, Blackstone has done, what Blue Owl did previously, where you stretch a little bit beyond the redemption limit to try and shore up confidence?
Allison, what are the fears? What are the knock-on effects of 41% of your money running for the gate, whether or not, you pay out?
Well, one thing we're watching really closely is whether or not these funds are continuing to take in new money. So, for example, yesterday we saw KKR extend or hit its limit of its redemptions, but it also had gross inflows. So, yes, more money was leaving, but still a healthy amount of money was coming in. Now, a lot of these funds are taking a lot of steps and a lot of measures to sort of reinforce confidence, saying, hey, we've got a lot of liquidity, we've got cash on hand to meet redemptions. We also have strong performance in the portfolio. This is market jitters. This is not reflecting anything related to performance. Please be patient. We will get you out, but maybe not as fast as you would like.
I do wonder, though, because for a lot of the large, publicly traded managers that you cover, their next leg of growth had been pinned on retail. Like, this was the big thesis of the next frontier because institutions are tapped out. What does it mean if maybe that slows down or isn't the next frontier?
So, and it's so awkward, too, because we had the 401k executive order, guidance come out this week. There's like a lot of stuff happening, and you're exactly right. Like, this is the next frontier of growth for these firms. This, I think, kind of like what we saw with BREIT a couple of years ago when more investors tried to get out of that fund as well. Blackstone really said this is like a teaching moment. We're confident in this vehicle. There's going to be some pain to work through, but we will get to the other side. And I think we also saw Apollo's Jim Zelter say the same thing this morning on television. He said this is kind of a moment of a bit of jitters, but we need to kind of teach, we need to push through it, we need to kind of let people know this is how it works and this is what you signed up for.
He seemed to be wearing rose-colored glasses. I mean, I recommend viewers go back and watch that. Yeah. It was a fantastic interview with John, Lisa, and Anne-Marie, but he was incredibly optimistic, seemed to think like, the war in Iran, for example, this is just a blip.
Yeah, I mean, on the other hand, what I would also say, what else are these firms supposed to do, right? Like, if you want to ensure confidence in your product, you want to ensure confidence in the market.
But clearly there is some, like you were reporting on this morning, I mean, not credit, but KKR's private equity fund with a really big haul.
It's so interesting, yeah. So I think what we're going to see in private credit and in private equity is haves and have-nots, right? The folks who can kind of ride the turbulence. KKR has ridden through a couple tough years in private equity in the industry to bring in a massive amount of cash for their next fund. So they're going to be able to come out the other side of this likely winners. We're going to probably see the same dynamic in private credit. Some people are going to be able to get through this redemption spike, with strength and on the right foot, and others may not.
Allison, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Great to see you. Bloomberg's Allison McNeely. And we're going to get more on this sector, more on private credit. Armen Panosian of Oaktree, the co-CEO, is going to be joining Matt and myself at 10 a.m. New York time. And yes, indeed, it will be 10 a.m. New York time. Coming up, Goldman's Ben Snyder talks about the S&P's weekly pump and dump pattern since the start of the Iran war. We start the week okay, we end the week not so okay. That's coming up next. You're watching Bloomberg Open Interest.
All right, guys. Guy. All right, I'm gonna pay a nickel for that. All right, we're just minutes before, 7 minutes ahead of the bell. Seeing a whole lot of I know exactly what's gonna happen today. Are they just sitting here replaying this this launch from yesterday? Yep. Jesus. They got it from 14 hours prior. Who's going to watch this? Me. I think I can go ahead and get rid of that. Save on the bandwidth.
country. It's shocking.
Well, the president very likely brought Thune and Johnson together on this because yesterday he endorsed the reconciliation pathway. So we should have been expecting the breaking news this morning, right? Here's what he said on Truth Social yesterday. He said, "We are going to work as fast and as focused as possible to replenish funding for our border and ICE agents."
Oh, yeah.
About it. I love it. I love it you refer to it as that little one, too.
Well, when you look at the one from yesterday.
It is.
I mean,
comparatively speaking, the Falcon 9 is a much smaller.
Massive one, small one. Right.
I love it. Good stuff, Amanda. Thank you.
Thank you.
So let me ask you, ladies, where were you all when the launch launched?
So I was at the pool yesterday. Seminole High School had 2 games. We hosted Dr. Phillips yesterday at the Seminole High Pool. So we had a 6 o'clock girls game and a 7 o'clock boys game. Yeah. And I was actually nervous about missing it.
We are just minutes before the market opening. And I'm going to go over to Bloomberg.
For all the context and clarity you need.
Never mind. They look like they're just rolling advertisements for their channel. They'll be back up right when the market decides to ring, right when the bell decides to come. I guess I'm just going to listen to them talk about the launch of the rocket.
Fox 35. He was actually doing the commentary yesterday. He now works at NASA, and I heard Daryl start counting down, and he said 5, 4, and I started screaming, "You guys!" And so we stopped the game. Everybody turned, and we got to see it go up, and it was amazing.
Oh, Reporter Amy at work.
That's right. I know. And the kids
Even
got
when
to
she's
see
at
it.
play.
Yeah, well, that was what was cool. Was the kids are in the pool, and they.
I swear it's like chickens clucking. Do me a favor, drop a like. I would really appreciate it. It would really help this channel out. I am doing my best to find something of relevance, guys, but as you know, the market's being pretty predictable. You know, with with Trump's speech last night, oil's on the move, everything else is on the move down. S&P 500 futures are sucking it. Bitcoin is sucking it. I think it's interesting. Bitcoin, silver, gold, the S&P 500 all look almost identical. The only thing that is here to make money on is oil right now. I'd get in on some oil futures right now if I could. I can't because I'm a broke bitch. Thanks, Obama. There we go. Yeah, the RSI. Jeez, man, the RSI has stayed about 60 since last night. That is entering overbought territory. As long as it stays up here in the 70, this is definitely overbought. Around 60 is when it starts to push it. So it hasn't been in the overbought territory the whole time, but it's up there. So we may actually be in for a bit of a correction, but I don't think that's going to come before we see some more moves up. See, the moves are getting a little bit bigger now. And in about 2 minutes, the market will be open. Let's go ahead and get our order of things here. I'm gonna get Bloomberg on.
And there's a lot of good and bad that comes downstream from that.
I don't know if you can break down what the average person is seeing right now in terms of stuff that's AI generated versus, maybe more traditional human generated. But what's that going to look like in a year or in 5 years?
There's actually a lot of hybrid content, and too often we talk about synthetic content and organic content, and never the two shall meet. But there's a lot of content where AI...
I don't care. I just don't care right now. We are a little over a minute away from the market bell. And I think we all know what I think we can all expect what's going to happen. I think a lot of these that are looking either green or gray, they are low ups and sideways actions. I think we're going to see a lot more red. I think a lot of this down here is going to turn red. And this green over here is going to get brighter. Bloomberg should be kicking in for the morning bell. We're less than a minute away from the bell.
Wall Street, we draw a distinction between the rhetoric and the action, bringing you market-moving guests and original reporting. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
Bringing you up-to-the-minute geopolitical news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Stephen Engel at Japan's Akasaka Palace in Tokyo, and this is Bloomberg.
Akasaka Palace. All right, there we go.
We are moments away from the opening bell. This is Bloomberg Open Interest. I'm Matt Miller, looking at futures that are down significantly after President Trump's speech yesterday, but also after, the massive rallies that we have seen. I think Tuesday was the best day that we've seen since May. And we had, more than 2% gains on the S&P. So it stands to reason as you go into the weekend, because there will be no trading tomorrow, that a lot of people want to get flat and are selling risk in order to enjoy their Easter egg hunts. At the New York Stock Exchange, you've got smart self-storage ringing the bell. The stock hasn't really done much this year or over the last 5 years. It's down a little bit. And then here's Nano Nuclear Energy, a stock that probably a lot of AI data center providers are going to be excited about. Danny, in terms of what we're focusing on, all of a sudden, once again, it's private credit today.
It is indeed. It's kind of this fear that keeps bubbling up despite everything else out there. It's breaking through the headlines. Blue Owl, it's not trading as poorly as it was in the pre-market. At one point, it was down 10%. But the news we learned only about an hour, 2 hours ago, Blue Owl is going to limit redemptions from 2 of its private credit funds to 5%. It had a surge, a huge surge in withdrawal requests. One of its credit income funds saw 22%. Its smaller tech income fund had 41% redemption requests. Craig Packer in a filing saying that, look, it was only 10% of clients that asked for their money out. The rest of the 90% are staying put. But still some pretty stunning numbers, Matt.
Yeah, well, I mean, that means 10% of clients
wanted all their money.
Have at least 41% of the entire fund.
Yeah, I guess it's a question of concentration, but also it's people who are maybe like, maybe I need to ask for all of this back because I'll get it back slowly and prorated, so it's exaggerating some of this, but it kind of has a snowball effect of more negative sentiment, as you can see here.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting story. Tesla posted one of its worst sales quarters in years, missing Wall Street's expectations as the car maker struggles to turn around its core business and navigate an increasingly challenged electric vehicle market. And I will admit that even I, as, a gearhead, don't find this story very interesting.
Wait, why?
Because who cares about Tesla's car deliveries?
Because they're not a car company, or
it's
what?
a $1.4 trillion company. I don't care if they sell any cars. It's all about robots now. And we have a great, by the way, piece on the Bloomberg terminal about John Neal, who used to be a president at Tesla.
Let's take a look at Tesla, shall we?
How they were so good at ramping up in cars and how they will do that with robots. That's, I guess.
Can I tell you why you should care? Because the market cares. Yeah, its valuation is huge, but it's down almost 4%.
Investors care, dickhead.
It's the Blue Owl thing, I think, is more interesting because I have so many questions around whether or not this matters outside of private equity, outside of, a few software loans. Let's bring in Goldman Sachs Chief U.S. Equity Strategist Ben Snyder. And before we get to, the war in Iran and the horrible month that March was and the fact that Thursday seems to be the worst day for equities, what's your take on the private equity drama? Does it really matter for the wider market, for the wider economy?
NVIDIA taking a tumble.
So far, we don't think it's a systemic risk for the economy. The bad news is, if you talk to our analysts covering these stocks, they don't expect the headlines to change anytime soon, which means the kind of dynamic we're seeing in the market today probably continues, and it's hard to step in and buy those companies.
By the way, I've seen kind of this thesis put forward of prior crises when you want to, it's, the whole sell what you can, not what you want to, that if people are trying to sell out of an illiquid fund, they eventually move up the proverbial food chain, and maybe that gets to equities too, and they just start selling that. Is there any evidence that that's happening at all?
We've seen a little bit of reduction in equity investor positioning, but so far I would call it broad macro pessimism rather than panic.
Look at all that red.
What is happening with this pattern that we're seeing? And it's not just the S&P, but mainly, it gets bid up during the week. President Trump always says, we've won this war, and we only need a few more weeks to win this war. We don't need any help to win this war. Please help us win this war. And then on Thursday we sell off.
It's now raising questions about Democrats pushing for green energy. Watch.
I mean, people were trying to say you weren't going to need oil. Remember the whole, everyone's going to have all solar, all this stuff. That is not, that was never the truth, but obviously that's not how the market has evolved. So it's very important that we have cheap, reliable sources of energy. That's been our policy here in the state of Florida.
So President Trump says the short-term pain for long-term gain is happening right now. The administration is tapping the strategic oil reserves and waiving some EPA regulations to help bring down those prices. Here's the president this week.
Gas prices, today they hit $4.
We're $4, yeah, and we have a country that's not going to be throwing a nuclear weapon at us in 6 months.
But Americans are feeling the effects in the interim.
And they're also feeling a lot safer.
What is the plan to bring them back down?
All I have to do is leave Iran, and we'll be doing that very soon, and they'll become tumbling down.
Yeah, probably.
Tumbling down. President Trump doubled down last night in his address to the nation, suggesting that stocks will go back up, gas prices will come down when the U.S. is done with Iran. But no question when that might be. Shannon.
Couple of weeks is what the president says, perhaps. John Glasgow, watching it all for us. Thank you.
And here we go. 10, 9, 8, 7. RS-25 engines lit. 4, 3.
That was a glorious launch last night, I will say. I did enjoy it.
All those worries.
One underappreciated dynamic that's happened during the last few weeks is as prices have declined, earnings estimates have continued to move higher, in large part because of that tailwind from CapEx that I was just mentioning. So for example, if you look at the sectors most exposed to the energy shock, the energy sector and the consumer sectors, they account for about 20% of S&P 500 earnings. That's half the contribution from technology. So for investors, although the headlines are being dominated by geopolitics, it makes sense that the primary focus is on that tech investment spending.
By the way, just the counter to this, to play devil's advocate, this doesn't come from me. It comes from someone much smarter than me, Neil Dunna of RenMax, sending this note at the top of the hour, basically saying that the shock to gasoline prices works out to $120 billion. That's about 0.5 percentage points of disposable income. He goes on to say, what seems out of place right now is the fact that earnings estimates for publicly traded companies have generally been rising. I get that energy-exposed companies maybe deserve a bit of a shock, but what about consumer-exposed companies? If all of a sudden your income gets this hit from the increased amount that you're spending on gasoline?
We're about to head into the earnings season in a couple weeks. My expectation is we will see some downward revisions to consumer earnings. From an economic perspective, our economists have lowered their expectations for real consumer income and spending. I think that's very reasonable. But keep in mind, we're starting from a very elevated place, in part because of the tax refunds that are coming through right now. So it is a reduction in the outlook, but I don't think it's a kind of reduction that should lead us to really panic about the fundamental outlook right now.
Yeah, I don't think there is much else to be said about the market today, even though it is just 7 or 8 minutes into the market of being open. I think we all know what's going to transpire and how this day is going to go. So, that being said, I'm not going to hang around. I'm going to come back with some other news. I plan to do a little more live streaming on other topics, by the way. I want to start talking about aliens, because I do believe that that'll be the next thing that grabs us all in the news. Once this war is over and done with, that's going to be the next thing in the news, because Trump said he's going to release some alien files, some UFO files, and I can't wait. So in an effort to get ahead of that, I think I'm going to gather some intel, and I will hold a live stream regarding aliens maybe in the next couple days. I'm not sure yet. So yeah, that's it. I've got nothing else. I'm not going to sit on here any longer, because we all see where the day is headed. Oil good, everything else is sucking it. That being said, love you guys. Peace, love, and hair grease. Huh?